Chapter 618. It wasn't clear what Gu Beiyue said to Long Feiyi, but Long Feiyi's lips curved into a satisfied smile. Smiling coldly, he said, Gu Beiyue, will your lordship be raising a tiger and inviting calamity in the future by keeping you around? Gu Beiyue's gentle exterior didn't contain any wild ambitions, but he had an unusually calm and resolute heart. This was the greatest bargaining chip and weapon for someone who wanted to achieve great things. Once such a person developed a competitive spirit, he'd be a great calamity. As long as you treat Miss Yunxi sincerely, I, Gu Beiyue, will never make an enemy out of you. If you ever let Miss Yunxi down one day, I'll make sure your Long Feiyi will never have a day of peace, even if both my hands and legs are crippled. Gu Beiyue kept these words in his heart. He laughed brightly and said, Your Highness Duke of Qin, there's still time to regret. Just kill this one and end all troubles once and for all. Long Fei arched a brow at him, but didn't say a word before turning to leave. Since he dared to keep Gu Beiyue here, he had to have full confidence in suppressing the man. Long Feiyi had just reached the door when he saw Han Yunqing and Gu walking towards him. Han Yunqing was all smiles, so anyone who saw her would know that she had a way to treat Gu Beiyue's legs. You found the medicine? Long Feiyi asked. Before Han Yunqing could speak, Gu beat her to it. When did your Highness Duke of Qin become so kind-hearted that you'd save useless people? Long Feiyi naturally knew what Gu was mocking him about. He looked at him coldly and asked, Any progress with the perplexing butterfly illusion? Currently, they had the wood, water, and earth of 10,000 poisons in their hands. Among the 5 elements, they were still missing the metal and fire elements. He left this matter entirely to Gu. Gu had been keeping an eye on head Elder Ling and Madame Lianxin these past few days, so he didn't have the time to investigate the whereabouts of the metal and fire of 10,000 poisons. He shrugged and said, No progress. Then you can scram, Long Feiyi said. Gu's long and narrow eyes immediately narrowed into slits. This young master doesn't know what scram means. How about your Highness Duke of Qin demonstrate it yourself? Alright, I'll teach you. As Long Feiyi spoke, he sent a kick over with his long legs. Gu naturally dodged. You may not have the ability to do so. Long Feiyi was a man of few words, but Gu spoke a lot. Gu had lost several times, but every time he saw Long Feiyi, he couldn't help but provoke him. These two fellows were clearly incompatible with each other. Just as the two were about to start fighting, the sound of the door opening came from behind them. Han Yunqing, who had been standing behind Gu, had run to open the door at some point. The two naturally couldn't continue fighting, so they followed her into the room. Han Yunqing was in the middle of telling Gu Beiyue the good news that there was medicine that could cure his leg injury. Gu Beiyue, who had been quiet all this while, was visibly more spirited. His snow-white robes seemed to glow with a faint light, clean and beautiful. Really? He was excited. I've already sent a messenger eagle to ask around. Even if the muscle-growing ointment isn't with the king of medicine, as long as there's medicine in this world, we'll definitely be able to find it. Han Yunqing said seriously. Hearing the 2 words, king of medicine, Gu Beiyue was clearly startled. He glanced at Long Feiyi from the corner of his eyes, but quickly looked away. He gave a faint smile and said, Like this, esteemed Princess Consort won't dislike this one. Han Yunqing's heart ached a little. She didn't know what to say, but she still said seriously, As long as you can stand up, I won't dislike you. Definitely. Gu Beiyue was very serious. Gu rubbed his nose on the side as he looked at Gu Beiyue's face. Although he had known about this person for a long time and had seen him a few times, he had never thought much of Gu Beiyue. Now that he looked at him seriously, he found that this brat was really weak. Other than having great medical skills, this fellow didn't have anything good about him. How did he catch Long Feiyi's eyes and stay with him until now? Gu only felt that it was a little strange, but he was too lazy to think too much about it. Because even after looking at him seriously today, he still didn't think much of Gu Beiyue. Long Fei Ye's eyes flashed with a complicated look, but he didn't say anything. That night, Long Fei Yi personally delivered the Chu clan's intelligence report to Gu Beiyue. After Gu Beiyue finished reading it, he didn't think much about it. Just like that morning, he whispered in Long Fei Ye's ear. Long Fei Yi didn't say anything, but he kept nodding. The two of them seemed to be plotting something. After discussing for about an hour, Long Fei Yi was about to leave, but Gu Beiyue called out, "Your Highness Duke of Qin, please wait. This one has something to discuss with you." "Speak." "Esteemed Princess Consort wants to ask the King of Medicine for medicine. I'm afraid she has to pay a price, right? This one wants to." Before Gu Beiyue could finish his sentence, Long Fei Yi interrupted him coldly, "You don't have the right to discuss her matters with this prince. This matter is related to this one after all." Gu Beiyue said calmly, "This one's internal energy has been crippled. What's the use of healing my legs, ha?" He wasn't someone who gave up on himself. It was just that his heart was too ruthless. Ruthless to himself. Even if he had hope in his heart, if Han Yunqing had to pay the price, he would rather sit in a wheelchair for the rest of his life. He knew the King of Medicine well. Even if he took Han Yunqing as his disciple, it might not be easy to negotiate. Even he didn't know about the muscle growth ointment, so it must be a miracle medicine among miraculous medicines. How could such a good thing be given away just like that? Long Fei Yi raised his eyebrows and looked over. "Gu Beiyue, since you want to give up, why give Han Yunqing hope?" Everyone thought that Han Yunqing had given Gu Beiyue hope, but in his eyes, it was Gu Beiyue's unwillingness to give up that gave Han Yunqing hope. He knew that woman too well. If Gu Beiyue's legs were really crippled, she would feel uneasy for the rest of her life. A complicated look flashed past Gu Beiyue's eyes as he said, "This one has a way to persuade esteemed Princess Consort." This time, Gu Beiyue's words were interrupted again. Long Fei Yi asked bluntly, "Where do you get the confidence to persuade her?" Gu Beiyue was speechless for a moment. He realized that he had said the wrong thing in his haste. He silently lowered his head. "You were taken hostage, so the two of us owe you. Since we have the medicine, this prince will definitely make you stand up again. You just need to help this prince deal with the D and U clans." Long Fei Yi said this and strode out of the door, not giving Gu Beiyue a chance to speak. Gu Beiyue sighed softly. He couldn't sleep that night. The complicated feelings in his heart were all tightly hidden. He couldn't and didn't dare to reveal a single trace. As the guardian of Western Qin's imperial family, he had all the confidence and qualifications. Unfortunately, he couldn't say anything. He was determined to bury this secret in his heart. Early the next morning, the King of Medicine's reply arrived. The muscle growth ointment was indeed in the hands of the King of Medicine, but the King of Medicine wanted Han Yunqing to take Gu Beiyue there personally. Could it be that he wants to personally apply the ointment on Gu Beiyue? The King of Medicine isn't that kind, is he? Gu rubbed his chin, unable to figure it out. Han Yunqing knew that the King of Medicine wasn't easy to negotiate with, so this trip wouldn't be easy. She timidly looked at Long Fei Yi. She thought that the Long Fei Yi would object, but who knew that the Long Fei Yi would simply say, "Let's go together." If he wants to negotiate, this prince will negotiate with him. Han Yunqing was overjoyed. The happiest thing in her life was Long Fei Ye's understanding and support. Although this guy would occasionally overturn a jar of vinegar, he was still calm and straightforward in the face of major issues. At this time, Gu Beiyue had already regained his composure after a night of insomnia. Just like before, he pretended that he didn't know or understand anything. He sat on the couch and respectfully bowed. "Thank you, Your Highness Duke of Qin." "Thank you, esteemed Wang Fei." "Gu, let's go together," Han Yunqing said seriously. Gu understood medicine and was also a member of the medical community. If the King of Medicine made things difficult for them, Gu could at least give them some advice. Who knew that Gu would snort disdainfully? This young master has never been interested in men's affairs. Han Yunqing wanted nothing more than to send him flying with a kick. Go away. This time, Gu Qishao didn't stick around shamelessly, but really left. That afternoon, Long Feiyi arranged various matters in Yaoshui before secretly leaving the city with Han Yunqing and Gu Beiyue. They headed in the direction of Medicine City. In the west, he only needed to sit on the mountain and watch the tigers fight. He was quite free for the next few months. Although Lil Thing didn't know where they were going, it knew that the young master's legs could be saved when it saw them leaving the city together. It bounced around the young master's body a few times, overjoyed. As for Gu, no one knew where he had run off to. He didn't follow them out of the city. Before they left, Han Yunqing glanced back to make sure Gu Qishao hadn't come. She'd long gotten used to Gu Qishao's elusiveness and was too lazy to ask. Long Fei, on the other hand, would never care about his whereabouts. Several days later, they arrived at the medicinal forest. When they got close to the medicinal hut, Elder Wang and the others who had personally escorted them here had to stop. Although there were no written rules, unrelated people didn't dare to rashly approach the hut. Even the servant who helped push Gu Beiyue's wheelchair didn't come over. Han Yunqing wanted to take over, but Long Feiyi quietly took the initiative and personally pushed Gu Beiyue forward. Han Yunqing was stunned. She suddenly realized that compared to Long Feiyi, she was the jealous one. Long Feiyi turned around and saw that she was still standing there. He said unhappily, Han Yunqing, why aren't you leaving? She really liked those words of his. Every time he said those words, she wouldn't say a word and would quickly catch up to him. His gaze would always follow her until she reached his side. Only then would he look away. It was already past noon. The sun shone from behind, casting their shadows on the ground as if they were one entity. Gu Beiyue silently watched. Although he watched for a long time, he still closed his eyes in the end. If he didn't look, he wouldn't think. After quietly walking through a small path, they arrived at the medicinal hut. A white-haired old man stood in front of the courtyard's fence. He was none other than the owner of the medicinal hut, the authoritative king of medicine in the medicine world, Sun Zhong. They were still a distance away when the old man, the king of medicine, laughed loudly. Hee, my good disciple, you only came to see me after the new year? These words were clearly blaming Han Yunqing for not coming to visit during the new year. Han Yunqing had been so busy that she didn't even know which New Year's Eve and which New Year's Day. How could she have time to come? She hurried forward to explain, Master, the western region was in chaos. This disciple was still on the battlefield at that time and couldn't come over. This disciple apologizes to you. As she spoke, she respectfully bowed with her hands clasped in front of her. Then, she handed over a big gift. Unfortunately. Chapter 619. Unfortunately, the king of medicine didn't even look at it, much less accept it. Can't get away. It only took 4 to 6 hours to send a letter by eagle from Yaoshui prefecture to the medical hut. In old man's opinion, you don't have a master like me in your heart, do you? As he spoke, he stroked his beard, looking very unhappy. Han Yunqing only felt helpless in her heart. Although she called him master, she really wasn't familiar with him. When she refused to stay at the medical hut for 10 years, she actually couldn't be considered his disciple anymore. The king of medicine called her disciple and blamed her for not paying New Year's greetings, but he didn't really treat her as a disciple in his heart. Otherwise, why would he make things so difficult for her? Han Yunqing explained, Master, this disciple was really on the battlefield at that time, so I didn't know about the new year at all. When I remembered, the new year had already passed. Sending a letter by eagle is too insincere. No matter what, this disciple has to come to you personally, right? Hee, you don't come to the Three Treasures Temple without a reason. The king of medicine sneered. That's not true. I came here especially to pay New Year's greetings and to ask for medicine. Han Yunqing knew that her words were very hypocritical, but she still had to bite the bullet and continue speaking. The king of medicine was putting her in her place. However, after this hurdle, there was no room for discussion about asking for medicine. She opened the gift box in her hand and said, "Master, take a look. This is a gift that this disciple specially prepared for you. I guarantee that you'll like it." The king of medicine didn't even look at it and said coldly, "Since you're sincere, then don't leave this time. Stay and accompany me for a year, how about it?" As expected, they were talking about this again. Long Feiyi, who had been silent all this time, had a cold glint in his eyes. He said coldly, "Senior King of Medicine, the Princess Consort came here especially to pay New Year's greetings. This king came here especially to ask for medicine. Since the muscle-growing ointment is with you, state your conditions." Like all the geniuses, the king of medicine was also a proud and arrogant person. He raised his eyebrows and looked at Long Feiyi. He sneered and said, "Old man, I'm afraid you don't know the rules here." "Ha, no one has ever been able to get the medicine from the old man. Senior King of Medicine, you've misunderstood. I've never begged anyone. What do you want in order for you to hand over the muscle growth ointment? You can name any conditions you want." Long Feiyi was not only arrogant but also supercilious. In terms of age, he was not as old as the king of medicine, but in terms of temperament and aura, he definitely won by a landslide. He didn't beg anyone, and he didn't allow Han Yunqing to beg and please others like this. The king of medicine always felt that it was Long Feiyi who stopped Han Yunqing from staying in the medical hut. He didn't like Long Feiyi from the beginning. When he heard this, he suddenly became angry and said angrily, "Humph. Old man's medicine is not something that ordinary people can get. Go away. Since you can't get it, why did you ask the princess consort to bring the patient here? You obviously have a plan, haha." Long Feiyi sneered. "This is the old man's business. It has nothing to do with you." The king of medicine was so angry that he almost stomped his feet. He had never been insulted like this in his life. "The princess consort's business is my business. What do you want in order for you to hand over the muscle-growing ointment? Be straightforward." Long Feiyi didn't give in. You, the king of medicine was so angry that his face turned blue, but he couldn't argue. If it was anyone else, he'd have ordered his men to chase them away long ago, but this was Han Yunqing, this girl. Since he saw this girl's ability, he had always wanted her to stay in the medical hut, inherit everything he had, and become the authority of the medicine industry. It wasn't easy to wait for this girl to come, so how could he be willing to drive her away? If he directly said that he would only hand over the muscle-growing ointment if Han Yunqing stayed in the medical hut, he was afraid that Han Yunqing would be angry and look down on him. Therefore, he used the New Year's greeting to make things difficult for Han Yunqing, hoping that she would take the initiative to say that she wanted to stay. Han Yunqing had been forced to say nothing just now, but Long Feiyi just had to interrupt. It was really hateful. Han Yunqing watched from the side, knowing that Long Feiyi was relying on the fact that the king of medicine wouldn't drive her away, so he provoked her like this. A sly look flashed across her eyes, and she quickly said, "Your Highness. How can you be so rude to Master? Since Master said that the muscle-growing ointment is in the medical hut and asked me to bring Dr. Gu here, he will definitely save people. Master is the best master in the world." After hearing this, Gu Beiyue almost laughed out loud. The king of medicine's mouth twitched, and his beard curled up, as if he didn't know how to answer Han Yunqing. Han Yunqing quickly stepped forward and stuffed the gift box into his hands. "Master, His Highness misunderstood you, right? How should the king of medicine answer? If he answered no, then wouldn't he become the scheming that Long Feiyi said? If he answered yes, then he would become the good master that will definitely save people, that Han Yunqing said." The king of medicine suddenly felt that he had been tricked by this couple. "Master, don't you think so?" Han Yunqing seemed to be acting coquettishly, but she was actually pressing him. The king of medicine coughed a few times, and finally nodded. Ah, it's okay if the Duke of Qin misunderstands, but master is afraid that you will misunderstand. No misunderstanding, no misunderstanding. Master, let's go inside. Saving people is the most important thing. Han Yunqing was really straightforward. Unexpectedly, the king of medicine didn't bring them into the house. Instead, he led them around the medical hut and into a stone forest. At the end of the stone forest was a cave. At the entrance of the cave was a stone slab with 3 large blood-red words engraved on it, Medicine Requesting Cave. The cave was pitch black and they couldn't see how deep it was. Han Yunqing and Long Fei Yi looked at each other and had a bad premonition. Puzzled, she asked, Master, the muscle-growing ointment you want is indeed in the medical hut, but it doesn't belong to the old man. It was concocted by the old man's master when he was still alive and stored in this cave. Not only does this cave have the muscle-growing ointment, but there are also many strange medicines. My late master left a message that whoever can enter the cave and obtain the medicine will not be charged a single cent. If you can't obtain it, there will be a punishment. As the king of medicine spoke, a trace of cunning flashed in his eyes. He continued, As for what the punishment is, you will only know once you enter. Girl, whether you enter the cave or return empty-handed, you have to think carefully. Even master can't help you. Esteemed Princess Consort, the medicine-requesting cave is very dangerous. You don't have to take the risk for this one. Gu Beiyue said anxiously. Han Yunqing smiled and said, Taking the risk once to save your legs is worth it. What kind of danger hadn't she experienced before? She didn't believe that a mere medicine-requesting cave could hide a mountain of daggers and a sea of flames. Lend me a light. Long Fei Yi said to the king of medicine. The king of medicine was certain that they would go in, so he was waiting to watch a good show. This time, he had to make Han Yunqing stay. Soon, the king of medicine brought over a lantern. The 2 of you can go in. This Dr. Gu will stay. The old man will take care of him. Gu Beiyue didn't try to persuade Han Yunqing, but he insisted, I'll go in with you. Don't worry, we'll be out soon. Han Yunqing comforted him. You'll only get in the way if you go in, Long Fei Yi said. Your Highness Duke of Qin, I promise I won't get in the way. Gu Beiyue insisted. Long Fei Yi ignored him and held the lantern at the mouth of the cave to inquire about the situation. Han Yunqing comforted him. Dr. Gu, don't worry. Once we're out, you can stand up again. If esteemed Wang Fei won't take this one into the cave, this one would rather not treat my legs. This one means what he says. Gu Beiyue was very serious, his eyes bright. Han Yunqing gave a start. After knowing him for so long, this was the first time she realized that this gentleman had a stubborn temper as well. Still, she didn't agree. Dr. Gu, His Highness Duke of Qin's words are reasonable. Miss Yunqi, I'm supposed to protect you. If you put yourself in danger to save me, then what's the use of keeping my legs? What's the use of keeping my life, Gu Beiyue? If your highness and esteemed Wang Fei insist, then this one has nothing to say. I'm just afraid that the 2 of you will have made a wasted trip. Even if you get the medicine, you won't be able to save this one's legs. Gu Beiyue said coldly, his entire being turning Gu Beiyue into a completely different person. He had plenty of ways to completely cripple his legs. Han Yunqing was completely stunned. She only felt that the man in front of her was a complete stranger. She didn't know what to do. Long Fei Yi handed the lantern to Gu Beiyue without a word, then personally pushed Gu Beiyue into the cave. Han Yunqing looked at their backs and didn't know why, but she didn't feel worried at all. Instead, her heart was filled with warmth as she quickly chased after them. That's right, old man forgot to tell you that you only have 2 hours, the king of medicine shouted from behind them. He chased after them a few steps before stopping at the mouth of the cave. He would never dare to step into the cave again in this lifetime. Back when he came here to ask for medicine, it was because he was trapped here that he had no choice but to stay here for the rest of his life. This place was his nightmare, but now it was where his hope lay. He was waiting for Han Yunqing to follow in his footsteps. Han Yunqing's group of 3 was quickly swallowed up by the endless darkness of the cave. The King of Medicine hurriedly walked along a small path at the side. This path was parallel to the cave, and there was a hidden window that allowed them to see everything inside. Han Yunqing and the others kept walking in silence. Long Fei Yi pushed Gu Beiyue's wheelchair with one hand and held Han Yunqing tightly with the other. He was vigilant as he paid attention to the movements around them. He didn't even miss the slightest movement in the air. Although Gu Beiyue's martial arts were completely crippled, his vigilance was still there. He was just like Long Fei Yi, paying attention to everything around them. Han Yunqing was also on guard, the hidden needles in her hands ready at all times. However, after being nervous for a long time, they realized that their vigilance was unnecessary. This cave didn't have any traps or ambushes. Instead, there were many checkpoints waiting for them to pass through. As long as they could safely reach the last checkpoint, they could take away any medicine they wanted. Soon, they reached the first checkpoint, identification of medicine. A tightly shut stone door blocked their path. A little medicine boy in black stood in front of the door, holding a box of medicine in his hands. As long as you can identify the medicine in this box within the time it takes for a stick of incense to burn, you can continue forward. Otherwise, you must stay in the medicine hut for the rest of your lives. Violators will be cursed and be plagued with hundreds of illnesses that can't be cured. The little medicine boy's tone was stiff and emotionless. How do we identify it? Han Yunqing asked. Stand 5 steps away. You are not allowed to come close. You can only watch, the little medicine boy explained. Han Yunqing was amused. That's it. This was child's play to her. Not to mention 5 steps, even 10 or 20 steps wouldn't be a problem. That's it. When you're ready, we'll begin, the little medicine boy said. Begin. Han Yunqing was very decisive. Xiao Xiao slowly opened the medicine box, and Pill King, who was watching from the side, revealed a sly smile. He had seen Han Yunqing's abilities at Medicine City's Grand Medicine Testing Convention. However, he firmly believed that the first checkpoint of the medicine requesting cave would be able to stop Han Yunqing. Back then, he had lost at this very first checkpoint. Chapter 620. When the medicine boy opened the medicine box, everyone was shocked. The medicine box was densely packed with small round pills. There were at least 100 of them, and each of them was only the size of a pinky nail. Han Yunqing almost thought that it was a box of chocolate beans. The most shocking thing was not the number of pills, but the smell of the pills. As soon as the medicine box was opened, it emitted a very strong medicinal fragrance that filled the entire cave. Laymen such as Long Fei Yi could only smell that it was a kind of medicinal smell. However, professionals such as Han Yunqing and Gu Beiyue could smell that the smell was very complicated. It was formed by the combination of countless medicinal smells. To identify medicinal herbs, one had to pay attention to observing, smelling, and tasting. First, one had to look at the color, then smell it and taste it 3 times. The medicine boy asked them to stand 5 steps away to identify the medicinal herbs. Naturally, they were not allowed to taste it. They could only observe and smell to identify the medicinal herbs. The cave was dim. All the medicinal herbs in the medicine box were of the same color and shape. Even a small pill could not be seen clearly from 3 steps away, let alone 5 steps away. To put it bluntly, this stage required them to identify a large box of medicinal pills through their sense of smell. However, the smells of these medicinal herbs were all mixed together to form a strong medicinal smell. Han Yunqing sighed in her heart. This was only the first stage and it was already so difficult. What would the next 2 stages be like? You still have a chance to regret. If you regret, please go back the way you came. Once you start, there is no turning back. The medicine boy reminded them. Han Yunqing did not move. She stared at the medicine box. Long Fei Yi was a layman. He did not know how difficult this task was for Han Yunqing. He glanced at Han Yunqing and chose to remain silent. Gu Beiyue's eyes were complicated. Medical skills and medicinal skills were interlinked. He was very clear about how difficult this stage was. Even if Han Yunqing could identify all 100 of the pills and get them right, their chances of victory were still slim. Because there wasn't enough time. There were a total of 3 stages in the medicine requesting cave, and each stage was more difficult than the last. They only had 2 hours, and to accurately identify 100 types of pills, even the best pharmacist would not be able to do it without spending 2 to 4 hours. If they spent all their time here, even if they won this stage, they would still lose. Gu Beiyue was a smart man. He quickly realized that the so-called medicine requesting cave was nothing more than a scheme to force Han Yunqing to stay. Esteemed Wang Fei, let's go back. This is, before Gu Beiyue could say the word, conspiracy, Han Yunqing suddenly said to the medical apprentice, no regrets. Let's begin. As soon as he said that, the person who was most pleased with himself was none other than the old man king of medicine, who was secretly watching from the side. He, who had always been serious in speech and manner, actually covered his mouth and snickered. He knew that with Han Yunqing's character, she wouldn't go back on her words. He liked this temper. He was waiting to see how many medicinal ingredients Han Yunqing could identify in 2 hours. Back then, he had identified 57 medicinal ingredients in 2 hours. Although he had failed the first stage, he had still broken the medicine requesting cave's record. This was his pride for the rest of his life. He thought that with Han Yunqing's ability, if she performed exceptionally well, she should be able to identify around 30 medicinal ingredients. Although she wasn't as good as him back then, for someone Han Yunqing's age, it was already not bad. The little novice took out a single pill from the box and showed it to Han Yunqing in the palm of his hand. Gu Beiyue shook his head. Even Long Fei Yi, who had always been confident in Han Yunqing, felt nervous. How long would it take to identify the pills one by one? Once you've determined what medicine this is, you can tell me. Take a good look before you speak. Don't go back on your words. The medical apprentice said seriously. All right. Han Yunqing nodded and continued to stare at those pills seriously. The cave was silent as time slowly passed. After a while, Han Yunqing still didn't make a sound. Long Fei Yi and Gu Beiyue both had serious expressions and were nervous. Meanwhile, the king of medicine, who was hiding at the side, was rather patient as he waited. But after the time it took to brew a cup of tea, Han Yunqing still hadn't identified the first pill. Long Fei Yi and Gu Beiyue were anxious. Based on this speed, they had already lost. The king of medicine was also rather disappointed. He stroked his beard and muttered to himself, it seems that old man overestimated this girl. He figured that the time it took to brew a cup of tea was enough. Han Yunqi should be able to say the name of the pill very soon, but after another cup of tea's worth of time, Han Yunqing remained silent. She stared at the pill with a serious expression as if she was thinking hard about something. At this time, even the medical apprentice couldn't stand it anymore. After all, those who were chosen by the king of medicine to enter the medicine requesting cave were definitely not ordinary people. It had been so long, how could this woman not even identify the first pill? If you can't identify this pill, you can change to another one. How dare you ask for medicine when you're so stupid, hee hee. The medical apprentice yawned impatiently. No need, it's futile to change. Han Yunqing finally spoke, but no one understood what she said. The medical apprentice yawned halfway and quickly stopped. Futile? Why, you can't identify any of them. The king of medicine shook his head repeatedly. He couldn't believe everything that was happening in front of him. There was actually a day when he made a mistake. Long Fei Yi didn't say anything. Gu Beiyue made a prompt decision and went forward to identify the pills. Since they were entering the medicine-requesting cave together, anyone could identify the pills. It didn't have to be Han Yunqing. He wasn't confident that he could identify all the pills, but he could at least identify a few. He wouldn't lose too badly. Esteemed Wang Fei, let me. He said seriously. Han Yunqing waved her hand and calmly said, no need, I've identified all of them. The cave was silent for a while. In the silence, Long Fei Ye's lips curled into a handsome smile. The medical apprentice composed himself and asked in disbelief, Han Yunqing, you. What did you say? Say it again. I said, I've already identified all of these 100 over pills. I'll now name the pills one by one. Listen carefully. Han Yunqing said seriously. The medical apprentice immediately burst into laughter. Ridiculous. Woman, don't you even know how to lie? The medicine hut Holy Land Guard dares to speak so arrogantly. Sun Zhong, come out. You dare to bring this kind of person to the medicine-requesting cave, are you blind? Throw him out immediately. The king of medicine quickly walked out from the darkness. He never thought that things would turn out this way. Like the medical apprentice, he didn't believe Han Yunqing's words. He asked seriously, Han Yunqing, can you really not identify a single pill? Han Yunqing rolled her eyes impatiently and didn't even bother to respond. She had looked so seriously just now because she wanted to make sure that nothing went wrong. The detoxification system had already repeated the names of these pills 3 times. Medicine and poison came from the same family. Although the detoxification system's ability to identify pills wasn't as powerful as its ability to identify poisons, it could still identify the initial medicinal ingredients. Not to mention 100 pills, even 1,000 pills wouldn't be a problem. Han Yunqing, say something. The king of medicine was very agitated. It wasn't easy for him to find a successor that he liked. He didn't want to lose her so easily. Han Yunqing glanced at him and said coldly, listen carefully. Zigan, wind oak, 4 wood, birch leaf, guangji pill. Just like that, Han Yunqing listed a total of 107 types of pills in one breath. The medical apprentice and the king of medicine were stunned as they listened. Although they were very familiar with these 107 types of pills, they were still a little unprepared when they heard Han Yunqing read them out so quickly. When Han Yunqing finished reading, the king of medicine and the medical apprentice were both stunned. Han Yunqing leisurely cleared her throat and asked, a total of 107 types. Are they all correct? The king of medicine stared at her and didn't say anything. The medical apprentice, who had been impatient just now, stuttered, You, say it again. Didn't you hear it clearly? Han Yunqing asked. The medical apprentice had heard it very clearly at first, but later, when he was distracted, he couldn't keep up with Han Yunqing's speed and missed a few types. In short, he was now very confused. I didn't have time to hear it clearly, he replied. Then which ones didn't make it in time? Han Yunqing asked. Let me think, the medical apprentice said seriously. Han Yunqing immediately burst into laughter. You're so stupid, yet you dare to guard the medicine-requesting cave. Get out yourself. Before the medical apprentice could figure out why he was so stupid, Gu Beiyue couldn't help but laugh out loud. He hadn't been so happy since Chu Yuni kidnapped him. Meanwhile, Long Fei Ye's lips were drawn up in a beautiful smile. Since he didn't hear it clearly, how was he supposed to know which ones? Han Yunqing's question was obviously a trap for the medical apprentice to jump into. Who said this woman was kind and compassionate? Look at her, she immediately returned the favor after being called stupid. The king of medicine hadn't heard the names of the pills either, but he didn't dare to ask, afraid that he'd be tricked by Han Yunqing and damage his reputation. The medical apprentice flew into a rage out of humiliation. Say it again, slow down. My time is limited. I've already said everything, so it's your problem if you didn't hear it clearly. If you're so stupid that you need 2 hours to hear it clearly, then I don't need to walk the rest of the way anymore, Han Yunqing said coldly. The medical apprentice was at a loss for words, but could only concede. We won't keep track of the time, so speak slowly. He refused to believe that this woman could get everything right. She'd spoken so quickly just then, so there had to be many areas where she'd been vague. The King of Medicine had the same idea, but remained silent to wait on one side. Han Yunqing looked disdainfully at the medical apprentice and the King of Medicine before slowly listing out the names of each pill. This time, both the medical apprentice and the King of Medicine heard every word clearly. By the time Han Yunqing finished the last one, both of them were flabbergasted. She actually got everything right. Moreover, she'd only used the time it took to brew 2 cups of tea. She didn't even look at the pills one by one. How did she do it? Could it be that she could judge them just by their smell? Anyone who entered the medicine requesting cave would either escape with a curse or stay in the medicine hut as a disciple for the rest of their lives, planting, dispensing, and learning medicine. Han Yunqing was the first person to pass the first stage. The medical apprentice and the King of Medicine were stunned, unable to believe the facts in front of their eyes. Did you hear it clearly? Is everything right? Han Yunqing asked. The medical apprentice came back to his senses and suddenly worshipped Han Yunqing. He nodded repeatedly. Yes. Everything is right. Congratulations, you've successfully passed the first stage. The King of Medicine's gaze became abnormally hot as he looked at her. In addition to his shock, he was wild with joy. He knew that his eyes couldn't be wrong. He would never let this girl go. So what if they passed the first stage? The second stage didn't only involve medicine. He dared to bet his head that they would never pass the second stage. Chapter 621. Han Yunqing passed without a hitch. Long Feiyi and Gu Beiyue had been nervous for so long that they should be overjoyed. However, at that moment, both of them were paying attention to the Pill King. Anyone who had ulterior motives towards Han Yunqing couldn't escape their eyes. The King of Medicine was too engrossed in his joy to realize that the 2 most powerful men in Cloud Realm continent were silently holding a grudge against him. Before the apprentice could speak, the King of Medicine said impatiently, "Why aren't you opening the door and letting them in?" The King of Medicine had long investigated Han Yunqing and knew that she had formidable poison and medicine skills, but average medical skills. She could only treat minor illnesses and wounds. The second trial of the medicine requesting cave didn't just involve medicine, but medicine as well. No matter how formidable Han Yunqing was, she had no choice but to admit defeat this time. As for Gu Beiyue, he was but a mere 5th-ranked divine doctor. The King of Medicine didn't think much of him at all. He stroked his beard non-stop as he suppressed the ecstasy in his heart. He never thought he'd have such a capable disciple. He even began to plan out what kind of work he'd arrange for Han Yunqing after she stayed at the medicine hut. He felt that he should give her a show of strength, suppress her spirit, and then properly interrogate her about where she learned her medicine appraisal skills from. Of course, the most important thing was that he wanted to teach her everything he had learned in his life, so that she could guard the medicine hut for him for the rest of her life, concentrating on researching and developing medicinal pills. The apprentice quickly opened the stone door behind her. Han Yunqing was so focused on getting the muscle-growing ointment to treat Gu Beiyue's legs that she ignored the King of Medicine and strode through the stone door. Long Feiyi pushed Gu Beiyue to follow closely behind. Beyond the stone door was a dim passageway. With their previous experience, they didn't have as many misgivings or defenses as they hurried forward. Who knew that when they reached the end, they would see a large stone door that was wide open? What was going on? Could it be that I passed the first test too smoothly, so they're giving me a chance to pass? Han Yunqing joked. There must be a trap. Gu Beiyue was very cautious. Long Feiyi, on the other hand, stepped over the stone door in a handsome and domineering manner. Since he was already here, he had nothing to fear. He would charge through a mountain of swords and a sea of flames. If they dared to open the door, they naturally dared to enter. Han Yunqing was also a decisive person. She pushed Gu Beiyue and followed in. Just as she entered, the stone door suddenly closed on its own, blocking their escape route. Gu Beiyue said, "Presumably, the second trial has just begun." Esteemed Wang Fei, before he could finish, Gu Beiyue suddenly coughed violently. He coughed so hard that he couldn't stop. Han Yunqing was shocked. Did he choke? Gu Beiyue couldn't answer and hurriedly waved his hand. Han Yunqing handed him water to drink and was about to pat his back when Long Feiyi beat her to it. Who knew that before he could pat him twice, Han Yunqing also suddenly coughed. Although she didn't cough as violently as Gu Beiyue, she kept coughing like Gu Beiyue. It was as if she couldn't catch her breath and was in a bad state. There were many people who died from coughing in this world. Long Feiyi was so anxious that he couldn't care less about Gu Beiyue. He hurriedly carried Han Yunqing to the side and carefully patted her back and soothed her chest. He even kept feeding her water. It could be said that he was in a hurry. Unfortunately, before the water could even reach her throat, Han Yunqing coughed it out. And the action of patting was completely useless. In just a moment, Gu Beiyue and Han Yunqing became patients. Even Long Feiyi was coughing. Although it wasn't as serious as Han Yunqing and Gu, his throat kept itching. It made him very uncomfortable and he had to cough a few times from time to time. What was going on? After Han Yunqing recovered, Long Feiyi asked, "Poisoned?" "I'm not sure." Cough cough. "It doesn't seem like it. This must be the second trial." "Too cunning." Han Yunqing coughed until her chest hurt before she could barely stop. She handed the water to Long Feiyi and said seriously, "Dr. Gu's body is very weak. He can't take this kind of torture. We have to take good care of him. Otherwise, we'll have come for nothing." If Gu Beiyue's life was gone from coughing, what was the point of getting the muscle growth ointment? After Long Feiyi confirmed that Han Yunqing was fine, he helped Gu Beiyue soothe his breathing and fed him water. Han Yunqing took his pulse seriously. His cough was the most serious, so the abnormality of his pulse should be the most obvious. Gu Beiyue coughed until he was out of breath. He couldn't care about anything else. Every time he coughed, his chest would hurt and his head would throb. He couldn't stop coughing to drink water. He had been very close to death countless times, but it had never been closer than this time. It had never been more uncomfortable than this time. It was so uncomfortable that he couldn't even think. Even though he tried very hard to calm himself down and take his pulse seriously, he couldn't do it. Since he couldn't drink water, Han Yunqing could only take out the spray bottle she used to deal with the poisonous mosquitoes. She filled it with clean water and sprayed it into Gu Beiyue's throat to make it feel better. However, this method was useless. Gu Beiyue still coughed without any signs of relief. Han Yunqing decisively took out her golden needles and performed acupuncture. However, to her surprise, even acupuncture didn't have any effect. The coughing kept getting worse. Although it wasn't accompanied by an asthma cough, Gu Beiyue would still be out of breath if this went on. Han Yunqing, who was always calm before a life-threatening situation, was scared. She asked anxiously, "Long Feiyi, what should we do?" Long Feiyi didn't understand this kind of thing. However, he didn't panic. He decisively took Gu Beiyue's hand and transferred the vital energy in his body to him. Vital energy was obtained from innate vital energy and acquired through cultivation. It was the foundation of maintaining life. Long Feiyi's vital energy was sufficient. His body's foundation was good because of his innate good physique and acquired from diligent cultivation of internal energy. Once Gu Beiyue received Long Fei Ye's vital energy, his weak body seemed to be filled with a new strength. He finally had the strength to suppress his coughing and adjust his breathing. Seeing this, Han Yunqing was overjoyed and quickly fed him water. After drinking water to moisten his throat, Gu Beiyue felt much better. "Are you feeling better?" Han Yunqing asked anxiously. Long Fei Yi looked at him. Cold, he didn't show any emotion. Han Yunqing didn't know what vital energy meant to a martial arts practitioner, but Gu Beiyue was very clear about it. He looked at Han Yunqing and then looked at Long Fei Yi. His heart was like a spilled seasoning bottle, with mixed feelings. "Dr. Gu, quickly take our pulse and see what illness we have," Han Yunqing said anxiously. Who knew that Gu Beiyue's vision turned black and he suddenly fainted? Gu Beiyue. Long Fei Yi was angry and continued to transfer vital energy to him. Unfortunately, Gu Beiyue didn't wake up. He said unhappily, "Trash." Han Yunqing quickly took Gu Beiyue's pulse, but unfortunately, she couldn't find anything. Other than Gu Beiyue's body being weak, there was nothing special about his pulse. She then took her and Long Fei Ye's pulse, and it was normal. How did we get sick all of a sudden? Long Fei Yi didn't understand. Although he was a layman, he knew that to cause abnormalities in the body, it was either an illness or a poison. Since Han Yunqing couldn't find out that it was a poison, then it was most likely an illness. Long Fei Yi had just finished speaking when he couldn't help but cough a few times. "When we passed through the passageway of the second level, we must have inhaled something to keep coughing like this. There's something called a virus. Once you come into contact with it, you'll get sick." Han Yunqing's explanation wasn't professional. To be exact, there were countless viruses, but not everyone who came into contact with them would get sick. Whether one got sick or not depended not only on the infectivity of the virus itself, but also on the human body's own immunity. This was a very profound subject to explain seriously. Han Yunqing could only tell Long Fei Yi this. Although Long Fei Yi didn't really understand what a virus was, he could basically understand what Han Yunqing meant. He asked very seriously, "In that case, we were ambushed by a virus." This analogy was too appropriate. Han Yunqing nodded seriously. "Yes, that's right." She figured that only airborne viruses could sneak up on an expert like Long Fei without anyone noticing. Gu Beiyue's cough was the most severe. It was probably because his immunity was the weakest among the three of them. As the two of them were talking, a clap suddenly sounded from the darkness. An old man slowly walked over. He was dressed in the same clothes as the little medicine boy from before. He was the guardian of medicine requesting cave. As expected of the successor chosen by the king of medicine. Interesting. The old man looked at Han Yunqing with admiration. In this kind of environment, when one encountered a sudden illness, most people would think that it was due to some kind of evil method, such as being cursed or possessed. This girl was so young, but she was able to calmly analyze the reason. She was really different from the rest. Stop pretending to be mysterious. What's the second trial? Long Fei Yi asked coldly. The old man wasn't anxious with them. He slowly walked in front of them and leisurely stroked his beard before answering, "Young man, you've actually passed the second trial. It's just that you won't be alive to reach the third trial." The old man was really slow. Han Yunqing and Long Fei Yi were almost anxious to death. He even looked at Long Fei Yi for a moment before continuing, "Young man, it's useless even if you inject true energy into him. His body is weak, so the illness acts up quickly. After an hour, no matter how strong or weak your body is, you'll all die of coughing. So that's how it is." Han Yunqing was furious. She cursed, "Which black-hearted bastards set this rule? Isn't it just asking for medicine? How can it take someone's life?" The person who set the rules was naturally the medical hut's ancestor. Although many people in the medical hut had strong opinions about the rules left behind by the ancestor, no one dared to say it out loud, let alone curse like this. The old man's mouth twitched. He explained, "Don't be anxious. There's still a way to pass this trial." "What way?" Han Yunqing asked coldly. "Admit defeat. As long as you admit defeat, this old man will immediately present the medicine. I guarantee that the three of you will be cured," the old man said with a chuckle. "Is it very funny?" Han Yunqing's face darkened. Long Fei Yi drew his sword and pointed it at the old man. "Give me the medicine. Otherwise, this prince will make you die here first." The old man trembled as he took a step back. "Young man, don't be rash. Even if you kill me, you won't be able to get the medicine. We'll all die. This prince will kill you first. It won't be too late to find the medicine later." Long Fei Yi really wanted to attack. Fortunately, Han Yunqing stopped him in time. She said in a low voice, "It's not worth it." Since ancient times, there had been many people begging for medicine. If the medicine-requesting cave dared to set such a rule, it must be very confident. If they killed now, even if they got the medicine and were cured, they probably wouldn't be able to leave. The way to pass this trial was not to admit defeat, but to treat their illness. For now, they could only pin their hopes on Gu Beiyue. Han Yunqing persuaded him. Long Fei Yi naturally put down his sword. The old man heaved a sigh of relief and hurriedly dodged. "Young man, you only have an hour. Think it over carefully." Hiding in the darkness, the old man, the king of medicine, was already bursting with joy. Han Yunqing's illness was called half-day cough. If it wasn't treated for half a day, it would be fatal. Even the dean of the medical academy couldn't do anything about it. He didn't believe that Han Yunqing and the rest could defy the heavens today. Chapter 622. There was only half an hour left. Either they were cured and the third challenge would begin, or they would die here. Long Fei Yi and Han Yunqing had never considered admitting defeat. They had placed all their hopes on Gu Beiyue. The only thing they could do right now was to quickly wake Gu Beiyue up and ask him if there was any way to cure the half-day cough. Long Fei Yi seriously felt Gu Beiyue's pulse. Han Yunqing was puzzled. "You also know how to take pulses?" "I know a little. The true energy that I lost to him is running amok in his body. He probably couldn't bear it, which is why he fainted." Long Fei Yi lightly said. Han Yunqing didn't understand anything related to martial arts. She also felt Gu Beiyue's pulse. She found that other than showing that his body was weak, there was nothing wrong with his pulse. "Then what should we do now?" she asked in a low voice. "Treat a dead horse as a living horse." Long Fei Ye's eyes flashed with a trace of ruthlessness. Before Han Yunqing could understand what he meant, he had already grabbed Gu Beiyue's hand and poured true energy into Gu Beiyue's body. He already couldn't bear it, yet he still gave him true energy. Han Yunqing couldn't imagine the consequences. She wanted to stop him, but she was intimidated by Long Fei Ye's serious and cold expression. She didn't dare to step forward. The little thing stood on Han Yunqing's shoulder. It was even more afraid of Long Fei Yi than Han Yunqing. It was so anxious that it wanted to bite someone, but it didn't dare to act blindly without thinking. Out of the corner of his eye, he caught a glimpse of Han Yunqing's worried expression. Long Fei Yi felt somewhat helpless. This silly woman definitely didn't know how much damage he had done to his body by expending his true qi today. His true qi was vigorous and domineering. As soon as it entered Gu Beiyue's body, it went straight to his dantian. If Gu Beiyue's dantian was not injured, this power would be like a good medicine for him. Unfortunately, Gu Beiyue's dantian was seriously injured and he could not gather qi. Therefore, when this power reached his dantian, it scattered in all directions and scattered in his body, affecting the normal qi in Gu Beiyue's body. Long Fei Yi continued to inject true qi into Gu Beiyue. In fact, this was the most overbearing and barbaric method, forcefully smoothing out the chaotic qi in Gu Beiyue's body. If he succeeded, Gu Beiyue would definitely wake up and feel refreshed. If he failed, he would suffer from qigong deviation and die from bleeding from his 7 orifices. Long Feiyi was so ruthless. Seeing Long Feiyi saving Gu Beiyue like this, the king of medicine, who was hiding in the dark, sneered again and again. What's the use of working so hard even if he wakes up? The old man was frightened by Long Feiyi's sword. At this time, he was standing beside the king of medicine. He yawned slowly. Let the young man do what he wants. In the end, he will have to admit defeat. The king of medicine was not as patient as him. He looked at Han Yunqing and the others while silently calculating the time. At this time, Gu Beiyue suddenly coughed softly. Han Yunqing and the little thing were very nervous. They stared at him without blinking. Long Feiyi did not stop. Instead, he increased the power. He no longer injected true qi, but poured it fiercely. Ah! Gu Beiyue groaned and suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. If a martial arts practitioner saw this, they would immediately know the secret of Gu Beiyue's dantian. They would also know that Gu Beiyue's internal true qi was in chaos and that he could go mad at any time. Unfortunately, besides Long Feiyi, no one else present could tell. Long Feiyi, what's going on? Han Yunqing asked anxiously. Before Long Feiyi could answer, Gu Beiyue spoke up. This one is fine. I will have to trouble your Highness Duke of Qin to continue. He didn't even have the strength to open his eyes, but he spoke these words clearly and without hesitation. His pale face and tightly shut eyes were filled with stubbornness. He was as stubborn as a strong and foolish child. He clearly knew that his situation was very dangerous. He clearly knew that if he continued, he wouldn't go mad. Instead, he would bleed from his 7 orifices and die. Because, based on the current situation, the chances of success were too small. But he still persisted. This was a moment of life and death. Only the 2 men knew. A trace of admiration flitted across Long Feiyi's eyes, but he continued without hesitation. Powerful true qi flowed from Gu Beiyue's hand into Gu Beiyue's body. Blood continuously flowed from the corner of Gu Beiyue's mouth. The true qi in his body violently slammed against his internal organs. It was extremely chaotic. He felt like he would explode at any moment. Stop! Han Yunqing grabbed Long Feiyi's hand. Although she didn't understand, she could tell that Gu Beiyue was in great danger. Gu Beiyue didn't know where he got the strength, but he suddenly grabbed Han Yunqing's hand. Because he used too much force, he fell out of his wheelchair. Even so, Long Feiyi still held on to Gu Beiyue's hand tightly without stopping. Mama Yunxi had already made her move, so Lil Thing immediately pounced over and landed on the back of Long Feiyi's hand. It was about to bite down when Long Feiyi's other hand brushed it aside impatiently and sent Lil Thing flying. Long Feiyi, stop! He'll die. Han Yunqing pressed down on Long Feiyi's hand. If he can't live, neither can we, Long Feiyi said. Han Yunqing understood that Long Feiyi wasn't staking everything on a single throw, but that he had no other choice. She understood, but she couldn't let go. She couldn't harden her heart. He didn't rush her, but only looked at her coldly. His heart was always calmer and more ruthless than hers. Just as the 2 of them were in a deadlock, a powerful wave of true qi shot out from Gu Beiyue's hand and blasted Long Feiyi and Han Yunqing aside. The 2 of them backed up a few steps, while Gu Beiyue lay sprawled on the ground like a dead man, unmoving. Cheap! Lil Thing's shrill screeches shook the heavens as it pounced on Gu Beiyue like a madman, trying to feel out his breath. There was no telling what the results were, but Lil Thing remained sprawled on the ground, its body trembling. Han Yunqing was so scared that her face turned white. She clutched Long Feiyi's hand tightly, not daring to walk over. She was afraid. She was afraid that this trip would be for naught, that they'd part forever, that this world would never again have the gentle spring breeze of April. Dr. Gu, don't scare Yunxi, alright? Long Fei Yi didn't expect this result. The true qi he'd lost to Gu Beiyue had actually been reflected back. Wasn't this fellow's Dantian seriously injured? Where did he get the strength? What was the state of his body now? Was he alive, or dead? It had to be said that Long Fei Yi wasn't sure either. But right at this moment, the old man hiding on the side reminded them, you don't have much time left. If you don't admit defeat now, even the gods won't be able to save you once half-day cough acts up. Han Yunqing glared at the darkness, her gaze sharp enough to kill. The old man immediately shut up, but the king of medicine walked out with a laugh. So what if you can save Gu Beiyue? This old man isn't afraid to tell you that even Academy head Gu couldn't treat this illness, much less a mere 5th-ranked divine doctor like him. Hearing this, Han Yunqing came to a sudden realization. Her curses just then weren't wrong. The medicine requesting caves rules were designed to trick people. No one would be able to pass such a difficult illness. They'd come for nothing. If Gu Beiyue really died here, then it'd be the biggest mistake they'd ever made. Liar. Despicable. Her hatred flared as she raised her hand to activate the pear blossom teardrop rain. Just as she was about to shoot the poison needles, an extremely weak voice spoke up from behind her. Esteemed Wang Fei, cough, calm your anger. This one can cure this illness. This voice was so weak, but it gave people hope and strength. Han Yunqing whipped her head back and saw that Gu Beiyue had already woken up. Lil Feng was standing on his shoulder, wiping away its tears. He didn't smile like he usually did. Instead, he had a determined look on his face. His gentle hands supported himself on the ground, supporting his weak body, as well as all of their hopes. Han Yunqing had never seen the gentle Dr. Gu in such a sorry state. She had also never seen the weak Dr. Gu so tenacious and strong. Although he was lying on the ground, he looked like an indomitable man, challenging the King of Medicine's authority and even the Medical Academy's authority. He said that he could cure an illness that even Academy head Gu couldn't treat. Han Yunqing strode over, but Long Fei Yi was one step ahead of her and helped Gu Beiyue up. Gu Beiyue's leg was crippled and he couldn't stand properly. Long Fei Yi supported him. He said in a low voice, looks like this prince's true energy wasn't wasted. This one's life was given to this one by your highness. This one will remember. Gu Beiyue also said in a low voice. Seeing that Gu Beiyue's mind was clear, Han Yunqing and Lil Feng were so happy that they were foolishly happy. The master and servant looked at Long Fei Yi and Gu Beiyue and laughed foolishly. A mere 5th-ranked divine doctor dares to speak so arrogantly. If you can cure this illness, why is it so serious? Humph. The King of Medicine sneered sarcastically. Gu Beiyue wasn't in a hurry to go back on his words. He sat back in his wheelchair before replying, Senior King of Medicine, have you heard of the saying that Shinong tasted hundreds of herbs and invented medicine and agriculture? What do you mean? The King of Medicine didn't understand. Gu Beiyue smiled faintly. If you don't know the illness, how can you recognize it? If you don't know the illness, how can you treat it? Perhaps he'd profited from his misfortune. If his body hadn't been so weak that his illness flared up prematurely, he wouldn't have been able to figure out what this whooping cough was. Now that he'd overcome a serious illness, he had a clear idea of what was going on. Gu Beiyue, you really know how to treat whooping cough? Han Yunqing was pleasantly surprised. She knew that Gu Beiyue's medical skills were beyond the 5th rank, but he didn't like scholarly titles. That was why he hadn't gone to the medical academy to advance. But she didn't know that Gu Beiyue's medical skills were so strong. Could it be that he could really surpass Academy head Gu of the medical academy? According to Han Yunqing's understanding, Academy head Gu had the highest rank in the history of Cloud Realm Medical Academy, an 8th-rank celestial doctor. The King of Medicine was secretly amazed that Gu Beiyue could comprehend such principles at such a young age. Still, he didn't believe that Gu Beiyue had the skills to treat the illness himself. Even if he did have the skills, he didn't have the time to do so. There was still the time it took to brew a cup of tea before half-day cough would break out again. But Gu Beiyue gave Han Yunqing a very certain answer. Esteemed Wang Fei, this one can treat it. Before the illness flares up, you only need to decoct some medicine to cure the illness. Han Yunqing found it hard to believe, but she firmly believed in Gu Beiyue. What kind of medicine is it? Long chun, Pinellia, autumn stone, and winter grass, 1 tael of each will do, Gu Beiyue said seriously. Hearing this, a complicated look flitted past the King of Medicine's eyes. After all, the prescription left behind by his ancestors really did contain these ingredients. The King of Medicine listened without batting an eyelid, but Gu Beiyue didn't say anything else. That's it? Is there anything else? Han Yunqing asked. Chapter 623. That's all. Han Yunqing was curious, but the King of Medicine was extremely nervous. He feared that Gu Beiyue would really go against the heavens and reveal the entire prescription. Was there more? Of course there was. Gu Beiyue was gentle even against the heavens. As he pondered, he listed out the names and quantities of the ingredients. 3 taels of fritillary, 1 tael of watermelon, 1 tael of asparagus, 1 tael of lily. Before Gu Beiyue could finish, the King of Medicine was already stunned. He looked towards the old man, only to see the same incredulous expression on his face. How was this possible? A 5th-ranked divine doctor could actually treat half-day cough. Could it be that this young man's medical skills were even better than Academy head Gu's? That's definitely not possible. If Gu Beiyue's medical skills were really that good, why would he have stayed in Tianning's Imperial Physician Courtyard for so long? Why would he be a resident doctor at Pilfine Pharmacy? He didn't need to curry favor with anyone at all. As long as he went to the medical academy, he would definitely be able to get an official position and gain Academy head Gu's recognition. That would be a meteoric rise. Frankly speaking, as long as he had the heart, the medical academy would be his in the future. Very soon, Gu Beiyue finished listing out the prescription. There were 17 ingredients in total, exactly the same as the one the King of Medicine had received. This must be a coincidence. The King of Medicine was very certain. Gu Beiyue didn't answer him, but asked the old man seriously, "Is this Junior's prescription correct?" Although the old man didn't want to admit it, he still nodded. "Yes, all of them are correct. Your prescription is for half-day cough. You only need to apply it once, and the illness will be cured." Han Yunqing was delighted. "Then hurry and bring the medicine over." The old man slowly stroked his beard, hesitating. He finally understood why the King of Medicine had insisted on taking Han Yunqing as his disciple and keeping her at the medical cottage. Han Yunqing's ability to identify medicines was amazing, and Gu Beiyue's medical skills were extraordinary. If they could keep these 2 people, the medical hut's future would not be worried. The old man was reluctant. He looked at Han Yunqing and Gu Beiyue and didn't take out the medicine. "Where's the medicine?" Long Fei asked. The old man was still hesitating when the King of Medicine suddenly said, "You have to find the herbs yourselves. The medicine requesting cave never stores ordinary herbs." "What do you mean?" Gu Beiyue, who had the best temper, was angry. Who would have thought that the old man would actually conspire with the King of Medicine to open the stone door behind them? Once you step out of the medicine-requesting cave, you will see 100 mu of medicinal fields. "Hee, you young people are so capable, I believe that you will definitely be able to get the medicine. The old man will wait here for you to come back and take you to the 3rd stage. Remember, you only have a total of 2 hours. Go quickly and come back quickly." This old man was even more hateful than the King of Medicine. His words were so nice, but they were actually the most hypocritical. Despicable. Gu Beiyue couldn't help but curse. They still had an hour to pass the third stage, but they didn't have time to find the medicine because the half-day cough would soon break out. Once it did, they would be in a state of terminal illness. Who would have the ability to find the medicine? The king of medicine and this old man took advantage of this and deliberately made things difficult for them. They actually had the face to say such nice words. Gu Beiyue looked at them angrily. The king of medicine and the old man felt guilty. They didn't dare to refute and pretended not to hear. If they met someone else today, they would definitely adhere to the principle of fairness and justice. However, facing Han Yunqing and Gu Beiyue who had created miracles, they really couldn't bear to let go. In other people's territory, they had to ask for help, but in the end, they were controlled by others. Gu Beiyue looked at Long Feiyi, and Long Feiyi also looked at him. Other than using force, the two of them couldn't think of a countermeasure at the moment. However, Han Yunqing asked coldly, "Since we've found the medicine, do we still have to boil it?" This question was very sarcastic. The king of medicine and the old man looked at each other. In the end, it was the king of medicine who was thick-skinned and answered, "That's your problem. The rules of the second stage are that those who are cured pass." Han Yunqing didn't say anything more and only snorted disdainfully. She had the medicine. She carried 2 large dimensions with her. If she couldn't even take out the medicine, how could she survive? The most powerful function of the detoxification system was to automatically create the antidote. The prerequisite for creating the antidote was that she had enough medicine in reserve. One had to know that she had replenished her stock every time she entered and exited Medicine City. "Dr. Gu, can you recite those 17 medicines again?" Han Yunqing asked. Gu Beiyue didn't understand this. "Just recite it if I tell you to." Long Feiyi muttered on the side. He also didn't know what Han Yunqing wanted to do, but he had already formed a habit. This habit was called being obedient. Gu Beiyue could only be obedient. However, when he recited the first medicine, prune yearning, Han Yunqing took out a packet of powder from her medical pouch and said seriously, "This is prune yearning." Seeing this, everyone was shocked. Han Yunqing, what was going on? How many medicines did you bring? The king of medicine inexplicably felt uneasy. Han Yunqing deliberately looked over with a threatening expression, "I brought all of them." I'll scare you to death." As she spoke, she couldn't help but cough a few times and urged Gu Beiyue, "Hurry up, time is limited." Not only the king of medicine, but Gu Beiyue and Long Feiyi were also shocked. Gu Beiyue didn't have time to think and hurriedly continued, "Pinelia, autumn stone, winter grass." Every time he recited a medicine, Han Yunqing immediately escaped from the medical pouch. In the end, all 17 medicines were placed in front of everyone. The king of medicine and the other elders widened their eyes in shock. They were so shocked that their jaws almost fell off. They rushed over at the same time to check the medicines, but Han Yunqing avoided them. Long Feiyi, cough, hot water. Time was very tight. The frequency of their coughing was getting higher and higher. They had to take the medicine immediately. Long Feiyi was also shocked, but he quickly took out the kettle. Han Yunqing poured away most of the water and left a certain amount. She dissolved all the medicinal powders in the water and handed it to Gu Beiyue. "Dr. Gu, try it. What do you think?" Gu Beiyue took a sip and was even more amazed. Not only were the 17 herbs all correct, but the effect of the medicine made by dissolving the medicinal powders in the water was almost the same as the one made by boiling. "This is it." Gu Beiyue took 2 more sips and handed it to Han Yunqing. 3 sips will do." Han Yunqing and Long Feiyi quickly drank the medicine. As the elder said, as long as they took the medicine, they would be cured. The itchiness in their throats immediately disappeared. They only coughed a few times and felt better. This was truly heaven-defying. The previous miracles were nothing compared to this. The king of medicine and the elder were dumbfounded. They would rather believe that they were dreaming than believe the reality in front of them. Old man. Keep your promise and take us to the third stage immediately. Han Yunqing said loudly without holding back. The elder came back to his senses. Although Han Yunqing and the others had indeed recovered, he still had doubts in his heart. Or it could be said that he was lucky. Old man. Old man has to take your pulse first. When he said this, his heart was weak. Han Yunqing was about to reach out her hand when Long Feiyi pulled her behind him. He was more than a head taller than the elder and looked at him coldly. He waved his hand and said coldly, "Hurry up." The elder couldn't help but tremble and step back in fear. No need. It's almost time. You should have recovered. Otherwise, it would have acted up long ago, right? The elder wanted to laugh to ease the atmosphere, but unfortunately, his laughter was really ugly. He looked up at Long Feiyi's cold face and cold eyes. Not to mention touching his hand, even if he got too close, he would lose his balance. Then why aren't you leading the way? Long Feiyi asked in return. The elder was shocked again. He didn't care about anything else and hurried forward, just follow the old man. When they were far away, the king of medicine came back to his senses and caught up with them. His eyes were fixed on Han Yunqing's medical bag. His gaze could see through the small cloth bag. How many things could that small medical bag hold? Wasn't this too much of a coincidence? It was a special powder that could be brewed directly. There must be something special about this medical bag. It might even be a treasure of the medicine world. Soon enough, Han Yunqing looked back, causing the king of medicine to withdraw his gaze. But Han Yunqing had long expected this. This wasn't the first time someone had coveted her medical bag, so she didn't find it strange. She snorted disdainfully on purpose and looked down on the king of medicine for a while before turning back and continuing to walk forward. Her medical bag wasn't much different from those carried by most female physicians in Cloud Realm continent. There was nothing special about it at all. It was completely unremarkable. Lady Tianxin had personally sewn this bag for her daughter's dowry. She just happened to see it and took it for herself. It only contained a few commonly used medicines and acupuncture needles. Its true function was as a cover. Han Yunqing used this bag to take out things from the detox system and poison storage space. Its preciousness lay in the embroidery of the Xin character. If it fell into anyone else's hands, it would be useless. The old man led the way while the king of medicine followed behind. Neither of them knew what the third trial would be like, but they were still fine after 2 trials. Dr. Gu, is your body all right? Han Yunqing asked in a low voice. It's all thanks to your Highness Duke of Qin's true qi that this one's life was saved, Gu Beiyue said seriously. Long Feiyi was curious as to how his true qi had been repelled, but he didn't want to talk too much about martial arts in front of Han Yunqing. It wasn't convenient for Gu Beiyue to talk about it either, so he changed the subject. Esteemed Wang Fei, how did you happen to have these medicines in your medical bag? And you even finished grinding them? Gu Beiyue had long been interested in Han Yunqing's medical bag. He'd peeked at Han Yunqing's ability to take medicine out of thin air, while Long Feiyi had long seen Han Yunqing's skills from the rooftop. He'd even checked Han Yunqing's medical bag before. Although he didn't ask, he pricked up his ears to listen. Han Yunqing had been forced to take out the 17 powders in front of everyone. She'd long expected Gu Beiyue and Long Feiyi to ask questions, but she hadn't figured out how to answer them yet. This matter was really troublesome. Han Yunqing was silent for a long time. Gu Beiyue had always been considerate, but this time, he was too shocked. Seeing her silence, he teased, Esteemed Wang Fei, your medical bag looks like 100 medicine bag. Han Yunqing really wanted to say, it's a coincidence, but even she felt that this reason was an insult to her intelligence. She was conflicted. At this moment, the old man helped her out. He said, Everyone, we've reached the last trial of the medicine requesting cave. What would the last trial be like? Behind them, the king of medicine narrowed his eyes sinisterly. Chapter 624. Long Feiyi and Gu Beiyue were curious as to where Han Yunqing's 17 medicinal powders came from. Han Yunqing was curious as to how high Gu Beiyue's level of medical expertise was. Long Feiyi was curious as to how his vigorous and overbearing true energy could be repelled by Gu Beiyue's frail body. In short, both of them had their suspicions, but at this moment, they had to put all their doubts aside because the stone door to the third stage was right in front of them. This was the last stage of the medicine requesting cave, so one could imagine how difficult it would be. The first stage was to identify medicinal ingredients, the second stage was to treat illnesses, and both were related to medicine. What would the third stage be? Han Yunqing thought that it would definitely be related to medicine. As long as it was within the realm of medicine, they were not afraid. She inadvertently turned around to take a look, and realized that the old man, the king of medicine, had already disappeared. What's the third stage? Long Feiyi asked. The old man is only responsible for sending you here. The old man took a few steps back, and in the darkness, his figure was faintly discernible. Just as he was about to leave, he could not help but say, "Young people, if you don't listen to the advice of your elders, you'll suffer." What do you mean? Han Yunqing asked. He, once you reach the third stage, you won't even have the chance to admit defeat. You won't. The old man said as he retreated, and his voice grew fainter and fainter. As soon as his voice disappeared, another voice came from the darkness on the other side. This time, it was a female voice. "Io, how can there be such a handsome man in this world?" Han Yunqing and the other two turned around to look, and saw an alluring young woman slowly walking out. She was wearing a tube top and bloomers below, looking very cool. As she walked, she swayed her slender waist, and tilted her head in a flirtatious manner. As the woman approached, a faintly discernible fragrance gradually diffused in the air. Han Yunqing did not discover that the fragrance was poisonous. She was worried, so she activated the detoxification system's detection function, but did not find anything strange. This fragrance is not ordinary. It smells like medicine, Gu Beiyue whispered. Medicine? What happens if you smell it for a long time? Han Yunqing hurriedly asked. Some knockout drugs and anesthetics were not in the category of poison, but in the category of medicine. The detoxification system could not detect them. She could basically smell these kinds of drugs and did not need to rely on the detoxification system. However, this was the first time she smelled the fragrance of the woman. She couldn't be sure if it was poison or medicine. It just smells like it, but it could also be poison. This one has never smelled such a scent before. Gu Beiyue said truthfully. The two of them seriously smelled the aroma while pondering. Long Feiyi's fist was placed in front of his nose. He obviously didn't like the smell. That woman's pair of red phoenix eyes kept shooting flirtatious glances at Long Fei. She almost ignored Han Yunqing and Gu Beiyue. She walked past them and headed straight for Long Feiyi. The corner of Han Yunqing's mouth twitched as she thought, could the third test be the beauty test? Gu Beiyue sat in his wheelchair and was gently stroking Lil Thing, as if he was deliberately avoiding this woman. Deep down, Gu Beiyue was a conservative man. Long Feiyi, on the other hand, was cold as he watched the woman approach. "Sir, what is your surname?" the woman asked coyly. Long Feiyi did not answer. The woman was secretly delighted. She liked cold, arrogant men like this. She kept walking forward, but Long Fei suddenly kicked her in the stomach before she could even get close. The kick sent her flying and made her disappear into the darkness around them. Gu Beiyue had unknowingly raised his head and looked over. His brows were slightly furrowed. No matter what, he could not raise his hand to a woman. Han Yunqing was amused. She joked, "Does your highness not know how to treat a woman with such a good figure?" Long Feiyi glared at her coldly. His fierce gaze made Han Yunqing shut her mouth resentfully. Soon, the woman suddenly flew out from the darkness. She was bleeding from her 7 orifices. She angrily pointed at Long Feiyi. You dare to raise your hand against this lady. This lady will make you regret it. This prince only raised his foot. You are not qualified for this prince to raise his hand. Long Feiyi said. You. The woman was furious. Her facial features were twisted together as blood flowed. It was a hideous and terrifying sight. Han Yunqing finally understood why Gu Beiyue was frowning. Long Feiyi's kick had caused her to bleed from her 7 orifices. It was really too ruthless. What is the third test? Speak. Long Feiyi's tone was completely commanding. Less nonsense. Go in if you have the guts. The woman snorted. With a wave of her hand, the stone door automatically opened. Instantly, a fragrance floated out. It was exactly the same as the one on her body. This fragrance, there was definitely something fishy about it. Han Yunqing could laugh as she watched other women seduce Long Feiyi, but she absolutely could not bear to see other women provoke Long Feiyi. If he could be provoked by a woman, was he still Long Feiyi? Long Feiyi did not move. She confidently walked through the door. So much nonsense before opening the door. So slow. No matter what was fishy about this fragrance, they had already walked this far. Even if they walked this path to the end, they still had to resolutely walk forward. The woman finally noticed Han Yunqing. She narrowed her eyes and looked at her with a murderous aura. However, before she could open her mouth, Long Feiyi's cold voice came from behind, "Scram." That kick just now was enough to make the woman obediently retreat. Long Feiyi did not even look at her as he walked over and pushed Gu Beiyue through the door. The woman did not follow them in. Instead, she closed the stone door. Hearing the sound of the stone door closing behind them, Han Yunqing and the other 2 were not surprised. Because they were shocked by the scene in front of their eyes. They had never thought that there would be such a place hidden in this cave. They also never thought that the 3rd stage would be like this. At this moment, they were standing on the cliff. 10 steps in front of them was a bottomless abyss. The abyss was very wide. No matter how good one's Qing Gong was, it was impossible to fly across it. In the abyss, there was a row of wooden bridge. It twisted and turned like a dragon lying in the abyss. The distance between each wooden bridge was very far. Those who were not good at jumping would not be able to jump over it. Even if they could jump over it, if they were not careful, the consequences would be unimaginable. On the other side of the abyss, they could faintly see a cliff. On the cliff, there was a stone door with a big word, medicine, written on it. That door should be the door to open the medicine storehouse. The things we want are in there. Han Yunqing mumbled. The 3rd stage is to cross the abyss. Gu Beiyue guessed, these wooden bridges are suspended in the air. Once you step on them, will they sink and become unstable? Long Fei didn't say a word, but simply flew over and landed on the ground. His foot landed lightly on the first wooden stake, causing it to sink a little. Long Fei exerted a bit more strength, causing the stake to sink even further. Seeing this, Han Yunqing and Gu Beiyue looked at each other. These wooden bridges were indeed not fixed. If they jumped over them one by one, it would be over if they lost their footing. It seems that we will have to trouble His Highness Duke of Qin. Gu Beiyue smiled helplessly. If it was before, it would only take him an instant to cross the abyss. Now, he could only ask someone to carry him across. Including me, we will have to trouble him twice. Han Yunqing looked pensive. Just cross this abyss? It can't be that simple, right? As soon as she finished speaking, there was a whistle and a group of black things flew out of the abyss. Han Yunqi looked carefully and saw that they were the most ferocious birds, the man-eating vultures. Long Feiyi instantly flew back and stood in front of Han Yunqing. He said in a low voice, "Be careful, these black vultures can eat people. The man-eating vultures split into two groups. Half of them flew to the opposite cliff, while the other half flew to Han Yunqing's side. They did not attack them, but landed on the side and stared at them covetously. The one controlling these vultures must be that woman from before. She was hiding nearby but did not appear. What were the rules of the third stage? Let's cross it as soon as possible. This fragrance will suppress one's internal energy. The longer we stay, the more it will be suppressed. Long Fei Yi said in a low voice. He used his internal energy to fly to the other side of the cliff and discovered this secret. No matter what the rules of the third stage were, their destination was on the other side. As long as they crossed the abyss, everything would be over. Han Yunqing and Gu Beiyue could not cross the abyss alone. They could only rely on him to carry them. In such a short time, his internal energy was suppressed by 30 to 40%. If he delayed any longer, he might not be able to fly over. Your Highness, let me try. Gu Beiyue said seriously. Long Fei Yi generously agreed. At this time, the woman from before and the old man, the king of medicine, were watching all of this in the dark. The woman had already wiped away the blood on her face, but it was difficult to hide her pale face. She coldly snorted, "You want to break my sealing skill incense? Simply wishful thinking. Hee, old man's plan is not bad, right?" The old man, the king of medicine, laughed. Long Fei Yi had stayed for so long that his internal energy should only be 60 to 70%. Moreover, it was still being suppressed. If he took two people to cross the abyss at the same time, the man-eating vultures would take advantage of them to attack in the abyss. He would not be able to protect Han Yunqing and Gu Beiyue. Therefore, he could only use his fastest speed to bring one person over at a time. If Long Fei Yi only brought one person to cross the abyss at a time, he would have to leave one person behind on both sides of the abyss. In this way, no matter if he left Gu Beiyue behind and sent Han Yunqing to the other side first, or left Han Yunqing behind and sent Gu Beiyue to the other side first, Han Yunqing and Gu Beiyue would have to face the man-eating vultures alone for a period of time. Without Long Fei Ye's protection, how could Gu Beiyue and Han Yunqing deal with such a large group of man-eating vultures? This was a dilemma with no way to advance or retreat. There was no solution. Amazing. Truly amazing. Hee, if you didn't say it, I wouldn't have known that Qin Wangfei didn't know martial arts. The woman laughed. This girl is a genius. She doesn't need to know martial arts. The king of medicine's line of sight never left Han Yunqing. He had lived in the medicinal hut for a long time. Ever since he entered the medicinal hut when he was young, the furthest he went to was the medicine testing convention. He didn't know much about the outside world, and he knew very little about Han Yunqing and the others. He knew that Han Yunqing didn't know martial arts, but he didn't know that Han Yunqing knew the art of poison. He also didn't know that Han Yunqing had hidden weapons. He knew that Gu Beiyue was a 5th-ranked divine doctor because Han Yunqing mentioned it in her letter. The two of them were secretly delighted as they waited for a good show. At this time, Gu Beiyue had already put away his needles. Acupuncture had no effect at all. He couldn't do anything about this fragrance. Is it medicine or poison? Han Yunqing was also puzzled. She sighed with emotion. The medicinal hut was still a medicinal hut. In the end, there would be things that she and Gu Beiyue didn't know about and couldn't deal with. These vultures wouldn't be waiting for Long Fei Yi to exhaust his internal energy before attacking us, right? She was suspicious. That should be it. Gu Beiyue said seriously. However, Long Fei Yi denied it. No, they can attack you at any time because with this king's current internal energy, this king can only bring one person to cross the abyss at a time. The king of medicine and the woman's guess was right. Long Fei Yi had a lot of misgivings. Han Yunqing thought for a moment and suddenly realized, the rules of the third stage were set at the last minute. This trap was set for us. She looked in the direction of the whistle and gave a cold snort. She really doesn't put this princess and Dr. Gu in her eyes at all. Your Highness, it's better to go over as soon as possible to avoid any accidents. The Princess Consort has hidden weapons and this one has a little thing. We can deal with these vultures. Gu Beiyue seriously said. Han Yunqing coldly said, this princess will poison these animals to death first. Let's see if the King of Medicine dares to keep me here. Chapter 625. Han Yunqing knew the poison arts, but she was only good at curing poisons. The number of times she'd used poisons could be counted on one hand. This time, she was clearly angry. Time is of the essence. I'll take Gu Beiyue over first. You be careful. Long Fei Yi was still very confident in her poison skills. Back in the day, she'd killed the bat swarm in Carefree City with ease. The abyss was very wide, while the wooden bridge was very long. There was no telling what would happen on the way across, so he wouldn't risk Han Yunqing. Taking Gu Beiyue with him counted as scouting the way. You guys be careful too. Han Yunqing said as she glared at Lil Thing in Gu Beiyue's hands. She warned, protect Dr. Gu well, or else you'll be held accountable. Lil Thing nodded its head like a lackey, but its heart was laughing. Mama Yunxi doesn't need to warn me, I'll protect the gentleman well. In the face of danger, Lil Thing had to advance and retreat with everyone else. Long Fei Yi pushed the wheelchair and was about to circulate his internal energy to push Gu Beiyue out when a whistle sounded. All of the man-eating vultures suddenly flew towards Long Fei Yi and Gu Beiyue to surround them, completely ignoring Han Yunqing. Han Yunqing turned to look in the direction of the whistle, her eyes narrowing into slits. You're seeking death. The whistle had come from the alluring woman. She really didn't care about Han Yunqing at all. Her only target was Long Fei Yi. That's right. As long as we trap the Duke of Qin's footsteps and stall for time, once his internal energy is sealed by the skill-sealing incense, they'll never be able to cross. The King of Medicine was usually solemn, but now he was as excited as a child. The alluring woman stared at the mass of man-eating vultures, waiting for Long Fei Yi to counterattack. She said, Old Yao, we agreed that you'd leave the Duke of Qin at Medicine Requesting Cave after this. Of course. Don't hurt that girl. The King of Medicine's attention was all on Han Yunqing. He thought that if he had such a granddaughter, he could die in peace. The vultures beat their wings as they drew closer. By now, they'd already covered Long Fei and Gu Beiyue's figures, but Long Fei didn't make a move. The enchanting woman was flabbergasted. If this drags on, it won't do him any good. While they were talking, black feathers suddenly fell from the dense crowd of man-eating vultures. There were quite a few of them. The cannibal vulture shed its feathers. These man-eating vultures were all adults. Although they were bald like vultures, their feathers were plump and would rarely fall off. The enchanting woman and the King of Medicine were both shocked. What was going on? Suddenly, with a bang, a man-eating vulture fell to the ground from the flock. The enchanting woman and the King of Medicine were dumbfounded. This man-eating vulture's feathers were all gone. It was as naked as a plucked turkey. Its eyes were no longer sharp. They were round and frightened. It jumped around like a headless fly, letting out strange cries. It flapped its wings with all its might. Unfortunately, its featherless wings could no longer fly. Soon, the bald man-eating vultures fell one after another. Black feathers fluttered in the air, and the featherless turkey ran all over the ground. The entire cave was filled with the ghostly cries of the man-eating vultures. Anyone who saw this scene would be intoxicated. The enchanting woman and the King of Medicine were dumbfounded. They had no idea what was going on. Long Fei Yi and Gu Beiyue knew what was going on. Gu Beiyue laughed loudly, and Long Fei Yi could not help but laugh. Han Yunqing seldom used poison, but every time she used poison, it would leave a deep impression in people's minds. It was unforgettable. It was indeed Han Yunqing who used poison needles. Her poison skills were superb, but her poisoning skills were terrible. She could not deal with so many vultures at once, so she could only use this method to scare the man-eating vultures. Sure enough, as more and more man-eating vultures fell to the ground, those who had not been affected spread out, for fear that they would be the next victims. Gradually, the figures of Long Fei Yi and Gu Beiyue appeared, and there were no obstacles in front of them. The enchanting woman had always thought that it was Long Fei Ye's trick. But she saw that Long Fei Yi was pushing the wheelchair with both hands and did nothing. Who on earth made the man-eating vultures, which she was most proud of, so funny? She angrily came forward. Who did it? Come out. It was me. Han Yunqing generously admitted. The enchanting woman looked back in shock. She saw Han Yunqing raise her hand, and a golden needle flew out from her sleeve towards her. She did not expect it and did not have time to dodge. She held her breath and was so scared that her face turned pale. Only when the golden needle flew past her face did she breathe a sigh of relief. Her back was cold. Don't be afraid. I know that you are the guardian of the third trial. I am not stupid enough to kill you. Han Yunqing coldly said. No matter what the rules of the third trial were, at least they could not directly attack the guardian, and the guardian could not directly attack them. You actually know how to use hidden weapons. The enchanting woman was in disbelief. Han Yunqing looked at the darkness behind her and smiled. Poison skills are my main profession. Hidden weapons are considered an amateur. What do you mean? The enchanting woman did not understand. That is, those who dare to block my way will all be poisoned to death. Han Yunqing's smile suddenly turned cold, and her murderous aura was threatening. The enchanting woman was so frightened that she took a step back. Hiding in the darkness, the old man king of medicine grabbed his beard with one hand and pressed the other hand on his chest. He was so scared. How come he did not know that this girl's poison skills were so powerful? If he left her in the medicine hut, what if one day she was in a bad mood and poisoned all his medicinal herbs? The old man king of medicine's determination was shaken for the first time. The enchanting woman was afraid, but she did not admit defeat. She sneered, with such great ability, why don't you walk over yourself? I am lazy. Anyway, my man will carry me. Han Yunqing lazily replied. At this time, Long Fei Ye's palm hit Gu Beiyue's wheelchair and sent it flying. He also immediately flew into the air. He would not step on a wooden stake to cross the abyss step by step. With his current skill, he could smoothly cross the abyss by borrowing the strength of the wooden stake 2 or 3 times. The enchanting woman was very anxious. She whistled with a strange tone. The man-eating vultures that had just escaped flew back again. It seemed that there were some new ones joining them. The number was so large that people would have goosebumps just by looking at them. Han Yunqing was puzzled. Were these man-eating vultures forgetful? Did they forget the threat just now, or were they forcibly controlled? A large number of man-eating vultures gathered in the air, forming a solid black wall, blocking the path of Long Fei Yi and Gu Beiyue. Long Fei Yi caught up with Gu Beiyue. He held the wheelchair's armrest with one hand and pulled out his sword with the other. Although killing these man-eating vultures would consume internal strength, it was better than wasting time. In the cultivation sealing incense, time was internal strength to him. After he brought Gu Beiyue over, he still had to come back and take Han Yunqing away. Every moment he delayed, Han Yunqing would be in more danger. Long Fei Yi held his sword tightly and suddenly raised it. Like a rainbow, the sword slashed towards the man-eating vulture's wall. With just one slash, the solid black wall was smashed into pieces. Many man-eating vultures died. The rest seemed to be enraged and crazily attacked Long Fei Yi. Long Fei Yi faced them head-on. With one hand, he raised his sword and slashed it down. Blood splattered everywhere. With the other hand, he held the wheelchair's armrest, firmly supporting Gu Beiyue and the wheelchair's weight. He did not let Gu Beiyue lean at all. Gu Beiyue looked at the back of his hand with blue veins popping out. His heart was full of complicated feelings. The little thing also looked at him and felt a little distressed. It always knew that although Long Dada looked very fierce, he was actually very good to his people. Although Long Feiyi killed many man-eating vultures and carried Gu Beiyue forward, they did not go far. The enchanting woman laughed proudly. Can he carry you across? Hee, just you wait. This woman was very flirtatious, but she was not brainless. Her man-eating vultures did not attack Han Yunqing or Gu Beiyue. Instead, they concentrated on attacking Long Feiyi. She knew that Long Feiyi was their main force. As long as she restrained Long Feiyi, they would definitely not be able to cross the bridge. Even if there were more man-eating vultures, they would not be Long Feiyi's opponent. However, Long Feiyi could not afford to waste time. Han Yunqing ignored the enchanting woman's provocation. She shot a few dark needles in succession. Like before, many man-eating vultures were shot down. However, this time, it did not serve as a warning to others. These man-eating vultures were like men of sacrifice. They were ordered to die. Han Yunqing's eyes flashed. She continued to shoot a few more needles to test the waters. The enchanting woman sneered disdainfully, "Take your time. Don't worry. I will count them one by one for you." Han Yunqing tilted her head and looked at her. "Are you sure?" The enchanting woman was somewhat uncertain. However, she still said arrogantly, "I'm sure." "Wait." Han Yunqing walked forward and squatted down in front of a dead man-eating vulture. She took out a row of golden needles and performed acupuncture on the dead man-eating vulture. The enchanting woman walked closer to take a closer look. She saw that Han Yunqing's golden needles were dipped in poison. They were all black. After a while, the man-eating vulture's corpse emitted a strange smell. Instead of killing the living ones, she used poison on the dead ones. What was this woman trying to do? The enchanting woman covered her nose and didn't understand what was going on. The group of man-eating vultures that were besieging Long Feiyi seemed to be possessed. They rushed to Han Yunqing's side. The enchanting woman was so shocked that she whistled. However, the man-eating vultures were completely out of her control. They rushed over crazily. After Han Yunqing stepped back, the man-eating vultures all rushed to the corpse and fought for food. All the man-eating vultures that ate the corpse died on the spot without exception. Once they died, they immediately became the food of their companions. This cycle continued. After a while, the ground was covered with corpses. Long Feiyi looked back and continued to move forward with Gu Beiyue without hesitation. Han Yunqing stood aside with her arms crossed in front of her chest. She looked high and mighty. The corners of her mouth were slightly raised, as if she was the controller of the man-eating vultures. The enchanting woman was so scared that her face turned pale. "No. No. You don't have to count them one by one, because they will all die." Han Yunqing threw down these words and turned to the edge of the abyss. She had tested them just now and confirmed that the man-eating vultures had been given a death order. All the birds that were completely under her control would be poisoned with a poison named cannibalism, just like the giant bats in Liberty City. The poison was the same. It was just that the method of poisoning was different. If the enchanting woman was smart enough, she would have attacked her. The threat of the man-eating vultures was gone. They should be safe. Han Yunqing stood at the edge of the abyss and looked at the backs of Long Feiyi and Gu Beiyue. She was waiting for Long Feiyi to come and pick her up. They should have enough time. However, Han Yunqing soon found that she was wrong. Because Chapter 626. Han Yunqing's mistake was not to miscalculate the time, but to underestimate the seductive woman's sinister cruelty. Just like her, the seductive woman stared at Long Feiyi and Gu Beiyue's backs without making a move. It was as if she had given up, but in reality, she was looking for the best opportunity to make a move. This time, she'd like to see just how much help Han Yunqing had. At this moment, Long Fei Yi was already halfway through the journey. He was hovering in the air above the abyss, but he had yet to borrow strength from the wooden stakes. The seductive woman was secretly impressed. She did not expect Long Fei Yi's inner strength to be so terrifying. She originally thought that Long Fei Yi would need to borrow strength from the wooden stakes at least 3 times. She did not expect him to be able to fly halfway through the journey with a wheelchair-bound cripple. He really can't be underestimated. Sigh, what a pity. The seductive woman muttered to herself. She had always been ruthless, but facing such an outstanding man like Long Fei Yi, she was still somewhat reluctant. Of course, she would rather destroy something that was destined to be unattainable. At this moment, the old man king of medicine, who was hiding in the darkness, was also staring at Long Fei Yi. He knew very well what the seductive woman was going to do. He was so nervous that he clutched his long beard tightly, forgetting about the pain. He did not have the solemn and dignified aura that he had outside. He was frightened by the group of man-eating vultures that were killing each other. He was already regretting his decision and did not dare to keep Han Yunqing in the medicine hut. However, he still wanted to be Han Yunqing's master, a true master. He wanted to teach her medicine and give her the medicine hut in the future. Han Yunqing's excellence would convince people wholeheartedly and make people unable to let go. To save this master-disciple relationship, he had to stop the seductive woman. However, he could not do it because he could not make the decision in the medicine-requesting cave. Since Han Yunqing and the others had entered the medicine-requesting cave, they had to walk this path to the end. Abruptly, Long Fei, who had been flying through the air above the bridge, dropped to the ground. He was finally going to borrow strength. At this moment, he was ruthlessly stomping down on the wooden stake below. When it came to borrowing force, the stronger the force, the greater the rebound force. Without a doubt, Long Fei Yi's stomp was very heavy. He wanted to use this stomp to speed up and reach the opposite shore. After all, he was worried about Han Yunqing. Han Yunqing understood the principle of borrowing power. She was very confident in Long Fei Yi, but she never thought that when Long Fei Yi was about to step on the wooden stake, the enchanting woman would suddenly order, "Release the arrows." In an instant, countless sharp arrows shot through the air and accurately struck the wooden stake, causing it to shatter into pieces. The fragments scattered into the abyss and disappeared. Long Fei Yi missed a step and instantly lost his center of gravity. Together with Gu Beiyue, he fell down hard. Originally, when he needed to borrow strength, he was almost unable to support himself. Adding on the strength of his stomp, they fell 3 to 4 meters deep. At the same time, the skill-sealing incense in the air suddenly became very strong. It was so strong that it made people unable to control themselves and sneeze. The enchanting woman wanted to kill them all. Long Fei Yi. Han Yunqing was shocked. She saw Long Fei Yi and Gu Beiyue falling down rapidly. There was nothing to cling on to as their figures were getting further and further away. Long Fei Yi. She kept shouting. She didn't know if Long Fei Yi heard her or not as he didn't respond to her. Everything happened too suddenly. I also don't know what's at the bottom of the abyss. The enchanting woman was somewhat regretful. But when facing Han Yunqing, she maintained a calm and composed attitude, but one thing is certain. You will lose. In less than an hour, time is up. Han Yunqing didn't care about winning or losing. She was lying on the edge of the abyss, trying her best to look at the smaller and smaller figures. She kept shouting Long Fei Yi's name, hoping to receive a response. She hoped that the man would reply to her like before, "Don't worry." What was at the bottom of the abyss wasn't important at all. The important thing was that Long Fei Yi was in the middle of the abyss. There was nothing around him that he could borrow strength from. The important thing was that Long Fei Yi was carrying the injured Gu Beiyue. The important thing was that the skill-sealing incense had suddenly become strong. Long Fei Ye's internal energy had been greatly consumed. Who knew how much internal energy he had left and how long he could last? At this time, Han Yunqing was still calm. She immediately raised her hand and aimed the hidden needle at the enchanting woman. Remove the skill-sealing incense, otherwise this princess will kill you. This was the only way she could help Long Fei Yi. After the skill-sealing incense was removed, even if Long Fei Ye's internal energy couldn't be fully recovered, at least it wouldn't continue to weaken. There was still hope. Are you threatening me? He he. The enchanting woman deliberately covered her face and laughed. This Wang Fei is ordering you. Han Yunqing said sternly. If I don't? The enchanting woman provoked. Han Yunqing didn't speak nonsense. The poisonous needle flew out in an instant. The enchanting woman immediately dodged. Han Yunqing's eyes flashed and the torrential pear blossom needles shot out. These needles were dipped in 33 kinds of poisons. Some needed to be touched to be poisoned, while some had poisonous powder that could be inhaled. The enchanting woman wasn't a first-class expert. Facing so many hidden needles, she was overwhelmed. Although she barely dodged, she didn't dodge in time and inhaled the poisonous powder. She immediately felt her whole body itch unbearably. You dare to move against the gatekeeper? You can forget about leaving this place for the rest of your life. The enchanting woman flew into a rage. Long Fei Ye's life was in danger. Han Yunqing didn't care about the rules. Even if the rules were set by the old Jade Emperor, she would still treat them as farts. She angrily said, immediately remove the skill-sealing incense. If you deny the man-eating vultures, you will end up like them. The enchanting woman wanted to resist the itch, but unfortunately, she couldn't. She only scratched a few times and the skin on her arm broke. Once the wound appeared, the skin around it immediately began to fester. What would happen to the man-eating vultures? Would they lose all their feathers? Or would they be eaten by their own kind? How could the enchanting woman dare to imagine? She was frightened and quickly changed her words, quickly help me detoxify the poison. I will immediately remove the skill-sealing incense. You don't have the qualifications to make conditions with this princess. Han Yunqing angrily shouted. She kept looking into the abyss. Long Fei Yi and Gu Beiyue's figures were becoming more and more blurred. She couldn't afford to delay. The enchanting woman also couldn't afford to delay. However, she was at her wit's end. She lied to Han Yunqing. She couldn't immediately remove the skill-sealing incense. Once the skill-sealing incense was released, no one could remove it. She could only wait for it to disperse. Seeing the evasive look in her eyes, Han Yunqing was startled. You can't do it? The enchanting woman could only nod. Han Yunqing, the rules of the third stage are decided by me. As long as you give me the antidote, I will definitely let you out. I will do what I say. Han Yunqing was unable to restrain her anger. I'm warning you, if my husband has the slightest mishap, I will peel off 3 layers of your skin. She looked into the abyss, wishing she could lock Long Fei Ye's back in her eyes. Unfortunately, that blurry back was already very, very small. The enchanting woman looked at her arm, which was about to peel off 3 layers of skin. She was so scared that her face turned pale. She hurriedly advised Han Yunqing, I'll be honest with you. If you fall into such a deep abyss, don't mention death, even your corpse might not be found. You should take care of yourself first. If I don't open the door, you will never be able to get out. He won't die. You shut up. Han Yunqing was so fierce, so fierce. The enchanting woman's entire arm was starting to fester. She rushed in front of Han Yunqing and said anxiously, this time, his inner strength must be completely gone. He will definitely die. You should take care of yourself first. Slap. With a loud sound, Han Yunqing fiercely slapped the enchanting woman. You hit me. The enchanting woman was furious. She immediately raised her hand to slap, but when she saw Han Yunqing's bloodshot and furious eyes, she was actually afraid and unconsciously put down her hand. He won't die. As long as I'm alive, he won't dare to die. Han Yunqing said each word cold. She turned back to look at the abyss and continued to shout, Long Feiyi, did you hear me? Give me a reply. Long Feiyi. There was no reply. Moreover, in just a moment, that tiny back disappeared. She couldn't see that familiar figure again. It had completely disappeared, gone. No. Han Yunqing finally lost all reason, her voice thick with sobs. Long Feiyi, give me a reply, won't you? Last time when he'd been stabbed in the heart, she could at least see him and hold his hand tightly. She could even help him find a doctor. But this time, she couldn't help him at all. She hated herself for being so powerless. Without that familiar figure, her free and easy self turned into a coward. Her entire body trembled as she screamed like a madwoman. Long Feiyi, give me a reply. You can come up, right? Long Feiyi, I'll wait for you. Long Feiyi, if you don't come up, I'll jump down. Long Feiyi, you haven't even finished your 100 steps yet. How can you leave Yunqi? Unfortunately, he really did disappear. Han Yunqing sprawled on the edge of the cliff, stupidly muttering to herself like a lost child. It made one's heart ache. What to do? Yunqi's highness had disappeared. She couldn't even remember how long it had been since they'd parted ways. She only thought that once they got close, they'd never part again. Long Feiyi, you'll come up, right? Long Feiyi, you said you'd take me over. How could you lie to me? Long Feiyi, if you lie to me once, I'll treat it as 100 times. I'll never trust you again. No matter how she warned, the abyss remained deathly still. Her voice grew softer and softer, as if she was muttering something, or sobbing. The alluring woman stood on one side, scratching her itch. She wanted nothing more than to push Han Yunqing down, but she didn't dare. She was so anxious that she was about to go crazy. At this moment, the king of medicine couldn't help but run out as well. He looked into the abyss and shook his head helplessly, filled with regret and irritation. Seeing Han Yunqing like this made his heart ache. Lass, the dead can't come back to life. You have to think for yourself. These are the rules of the medicine requesting cave. Didn't old man try to persuade you back then? The king of medicine did his best to salvage some of his image. Unfortunately, Han Yunqing seemed to have lost her mind and ignored him. The king of medicine glanced at the alluring woman, feeling rather impatient. Although the medicine requesting cave belonged to the medical hut, it wasn't under his jurisdiction. If this dragged on and the alluring woman really died, the guards of the medicine requesting cave wouldn't let Han Yunqing off even if he begged for mercy. Lass, let's talk things over. If you cure her poison, old man won't force you to stay at the medical hut, alright? The king of medicine coaxed again. Han Yunqing suddenly glared at him with murderous eyes. With the alluring woman's example as an example, the king of medicine backed away in fright. But Han Yunqing didn't make a move against him, but... Chapter 627. Han Yunqing didn't attack the king of medicine. Instead, she turned around and jumped into the abyss. Long Feiyi didn't come up, so she went down to look for him. On the Yellow Spring Road, beside the River of Forgetfulness, at the Bridge of Helplessness, she went to look for him. The king of medicine was anxious. He reached out to pull her back, but he was too far away and couldn't make it in time. He could only watch as Han Yunqing jumped down. No! The king of medicine cried out in pain. He really regretted it. The enchanting woman also chased after them. If Han Yunqing fell to her death, who would help her detoxify? What about her? However, at this moment, a shadow suddenly flew out of the abyss towards the opposite shore. The two of them looked carefully and found that it was Gu Beiyue who was sitting in a wheelchair. He was thrown out of the abyss and was in midair. Just as he was about to fall again, a long whip was thrown out of the abyss and hit the wheelchair hard. God knows how heavy the whip was. It actually pushed the wheelchair and brought Gu Beiyue to the opposite cliff. Bang! With a loud noise, Gu Beiyue fell to the ground with his chair. He shook a few times before he could stabilize himself. The little thing bounced up and down on his body. It was so dizzy that it couldn't even stand properly. No one knew what happened to them in the abyss. However, that whip must have been used by Long Fei Yi. They didn't die. How could it be? The king of medicine was stunned. The enchanting woman was also shocked. She was so shocked that she forgot to scratch her itch. Impossible. He can't have internal energy. Impossible. The concentration of the skill sealing incense was enough to make anyone's internal energy disappear in the time it took to drink a cup of tea. Where did Long Fei Yi get his internal energy? And it was so strong. Even if there was no skill sealing incense, no matter how powerful an expert was, it was impossible to use such strength in the abyss where there was nowhere to borrow strength. How did Long Fei Yi do it? He was actually able to push Gu Beiyue up, and with just one whip, he sent Gu Beiyue flying halfway. If he had this kind of power earlier, he would have used it earlier. What was going on? The king of medicine and the enchanting woman were both shocked. They couldn't figure it out no matter how much they thought about it. They all looked into the abyss and saw Long Fei Yi carrying Han Yunqing and flying out from the abyss. Was this man a god? The two of them were dumbstruck. A long whip suddenly lashed out fiercely. They were so shocked that they hurriedly retreated. The enchanting woman missed her step and fell directly to the ground. Only when the Long Fei Yi's whip shot up did they see clearly that there was a long sword wrapped around the tip of the whip. The long whip flew out of the abyss in a parabola. The long sword stabbed into the ground and fixed itself on the ground. Meanwhile, Long Fei Yi pulled on the long whip tightly and carried Han Yunqing as he soared into the sky. He rushed out of the abyss and into the sky. It was done in one go, truly domineering. He carried Han Yunqing horizontally and spun to the ground. Her dress fluttered in the wind, looking exceptionally romantic. The king of medicine, the enchanting woman, and even Gu Beiyue and the little thing opposite them were all shocked. Long Fei Yi frowned as he stared at Han Yunqing. He asked coldly, "Why did you jump down? Do you want to die?" "To find you." Han Yunqing was still in a daze and hadn't come back to her senses. She was really frightened. Stupid woman. Long Fei Yi looked displeased. Unexpectedly, Han Yunqing suddenly hugged his neck with both hands and cried, "Long Fei Yi, you're not dead. Boo-hoo. You're not dead. You're not dead." Long Fei Yi still wanted to teach her a lesson, but when he heard Han Yunqing crying, he was at a loss. A trace of panic even flashed across his cold face. When this woman cried, his world was in chaos. Han Yunqing was hugging him so tightly that he had no choice but to lower his head so she could hug him. Han Yunqing was sobbing so hard that her snot and tears were all over his face. As a clean freak, he could only let the tears and snot smear them all over his chest. Han Yunqing was still trembling. His heart had always been hard and cold, but now it was throbbing with pain. However, he didn't ask her not to cry. Instead, he allowed her to vent. He knew that this time, she was really frightened. He had never cried since he was very, very young, and he wouldn't cry again. However, he knew that crying would make him feel better. Just like that, the entire cave was silent. Only Han Yunqing's low sobs could be heard. She buried her head in Long Fei Yi's chest, and her cries reached his heart. Gu Beiyue watched from a distance as he listened. His heart ached as well, but he also felt a faint sense of helplessness. Earlier he and Long Fei Yi both heard Han Yunqing's voice. But the situation was too urgent so they were unable to respond to her. From the start till the end, she only called out one name, Long Fei Yi. Silly lass. Gu Beiyue laughed helplessly. He gently stroked the little thing and recalled the scene at the bottom of the abyss. When he and Long Feiyi fell, the skill sealing incense suddenly became very strong. Long Feiyi knew that he couldn't do it, so he gave up and rushed up. He tried his best to maintain his balance and land safely. That way, he would at least have a chance to save his life. But the skill sealing incense quickly sealed all his inner strength. Gu Beiyue remembered clearly that once the skill sealing incense became strong, Long Feiyi instantly lost all his strength and brought him down rapidly. However, he also didn't know what happened. He only felt that Long Feiyi's body exploded with a strong qi. Then he seemed to have recovered. He actually pulled the wheelchair and steadily stopped in the abyss. Long Feiyi seemed to be adjusting the inner strength in his body. After stopping for a while, he shook him out of the abyss. Then he added another whip and sent him back up. He was sure that Long Feiyi's inner strength was different from before. It was far stronger than before. This guy's inner strength was originally very strong and domineering. It was rare. Now his inner strength was even more terrifying. Gu Beiyue pondered. Could it be that this was not inner strength, but a power sealed in Long Feiyi's body? In a moment of desperation, Long Feiyi could only remove the seal. Thinking of this, Gu Beiyue looked at the sword that was still stabbed into the ground. Long Feiyi had the strength to push him and his wheelchair out of the abyss, but he couldn't carry Han Yunqing up. He had to use the whip to borrow strength from the cliff. It seemed that he would have to pay the price immediately for removing the seal. Otherwise, he wouldn't have needed to rely on external forces if it was just one at the front and one at the back. Gu Beiyue was basically certain that Long Feiyi's body was hiding a secret. His swordsmanship came from Tianshan Kenzo, but his whip skills were unknown. Did this sealed power come from Tianshan Kenzo, or was it related to his whip skills? At this time, Han Yunqing had stopped crying. Instead, she was laughing. Looking at Long Feiyi in front of her, she laughed foolishly with tears in her eyes. It turned out that the burly Qin Wangfei, Han Yunqing, could also have such a silly moment. Long Feiyi was originally distressed, but he was amused by Han Yunqing's current expression. He almost couldn't hold back his laughter, but he still managed to hold it in. He gently wiped away her tears and said disdainfully, "You're afraid of such a small thing? What's the use of being afraid when you're not here?" Han Yunqing asked seriously. Long Feiyi didn't know how to answer. He rubbed her bangs and said in a low voice, "All right, it's fine now. How did you break the sealing skill and sense?" Han Yunqing was finally curious. This prince's inner strength isn't that weak. This move is called putting one's life on the line. Do you understand? Long Feiyi asked. Han Yunqing shook her head. She didn't understand. This is the highest realm of inner strength cultivation, Long Feiyi said indifferently. Whether he was telling the truth or not, only he knew. Han Yunqing wanted to ask more, but at this time, the enchanting woman finally couldn't hold it in anymore and flew into a rage. Han Yunqing, he's not dead. Hurry up and help me cure the poison. If she didn't cure the poison now, her skin would rot. Han Yunqing wanted to jump down, but Long Feiyi hugged her tightly and refused to let her. Han Yunqing gave in and asked the enchanting woman coldly, "Did you set the rules for the third trial?" The enchanting woman naturally knew what she meant. Although the time wasn't up yet, Han Yunqing had already broken the rules by attacking the guardian. They had lost. "I set the rules. Han Yunqing, since you dared to barge into medicine requesting cave, you have to abide by the cave's rules. You can't blame me for not having the ability to pass smoothly," the enchanting woman argued. Han Yunqing sneered, "Rules? Then did you abide by the rules? Don't tell me you already knew that Dr. Gu and I don't know martial arts." Setting up such a trap obviously meant that she knew her and Gu Beiyue's weaknesses beforehand. The enchanting woman pursed her lips and didn't answer. She knew very well that she had broken the rules first. What, the old king of medicine can still interfere with the medicine-requesting cave's affairs? Han Yunqing asked again. Although she didn't understand, based on the old king of medicine's sneaky behavior, she could guess. The enchanting woman was completely speechless. She kept scratching her itch. Although she was unwilling to give in, there was nothing she could do. If she had known earlier, she wouldn't have provoked this group of people. She surrendered. Fine, help me cure the poison, and I won't bicker with you. Say it clearly. What do you mean by I won't bicker? Han Yunqing was still cautious. I'll take it that you didn't attack me. Deal. The enchanting woman said reluctantly. Only then did Han Yunqing give her the antidote. Long Fei Yi carried her, turned around, and flew out. This time, he used the long whip. Halfway through, he used the long whip to fling out the long sword, piercing it into the cliff before flying over. Although his inner strength seemed to be better than before, it was far from the strength that erupted from the cliff just now. Gu Beiyue had been observing all along. However, once Long Fei Yi and Han Yunqing landed, Gu Beiyue retracted his gaze. Finally, they were all here. Behind them was the stone door. The enchanting woman and the old king of medicine were opposite. The old king of medicine seemed to be guilty and had long disappeared. The enchanting woman took the antidote and felt much better. However, how could she be willing to suffer such a big loss? She looked at Han Yunqing and the others from afar, not saying a word. Aren't you going to open the door? Han Yunqing asked loudly. Who told you that it's over? I'll go out and open the door myself. The enchanting woman sneered. She was unwilling to let it go. She had to activate the mechanism and make Han Yunqing and the others wait. You. Han Yunqing was about to join forces with Long Fei Yi to deal with her. At this time, the little thing suddenly jumped onto the stone door and started chewing crazily. They had agreed to advance and retreat together. The little thing had always wanted to help, but it couldn't find an opportunity. Now that it could finally do something, it had to seize the opportunity. What stone door? It couldn't stop it. Sure enough, not long after, the huge stone door turned into a pile of powder. The enchanting woman was completely dumbfounded. Who were these people? Even the squirrel they brought was so scary. Han Yunqing and the others couldn't be bothered with the enchanting woman anymore. The three of them carefully walked through the door. No one had successfully passed the 3 stages of the medicine-requesting cave. What was behind this stone door? What else would Han Yunqing and the others encounter? Chapter 628. The King of Medicine had said that those who successfully passed the 3 stages of the medicine-requesting cave could take away the medicine they requested. Now that Han Yunqing and the rest had passed the 3rd stone door, they should be able to get the medicine, right? Logically speaking, that should be the case. However, the enchanting woman did not explain anything, so Han Yunqing and the rest could not help but feel uneasy. After passing through the stone door, they still saw a dark passage. Other than the word, medicine, on the stone door, there were no other instructions. Han Yunqing and the rest could only continue forward. When their figures disappeared into the darkness, the King of Medicine appeared again. He was relieved that Han Yunqing and the rest were safe. If anything had happened to Han Yunqing today, he would have regretted it for the rest of his life. What do you think it's like inside? The King of Medicine asked in a low voice. Because no one had successfully passed the 3 stages of the medicine-requesting cave, the stone door had never been opened since it was set up. Even the King of Medicine, as the head of the medicine hut, did not know much about it. Although the medicine-requesting cave belonged to the medicine hut, it was the most special and independent existence of the medicine hut. If you don't know, how would I know? The enchanting woman was also very curious. She had been sent to the medicine hut to learn medicine when she was young. She had successfully passed the test and was allowed to stay. When she grew up, she was fortunate enough to become a gatekeeper of the medicine-requesting cave. However, her understanding of the medicine-requesting cave was even less than the king of medicines. She was only responsible for guarding the third stage. "Let's go in and take a look," the king of medicine suggested. The enchanting woman immediately laughed. "Old Yao, you must be joking. It's not like you don't know the rules of the medicine-requesting cave. You should spare me." The enchanting woman had already broken the rules by colluding with the king of medicine to make things difficult for Han Yunqing. If she broke the rules again, she did not dare to imagine the consequences. She was about to leave when she turned back and sneered. "Old Yao, Han Yunqing acknowledged you as her master in front of everyone. Don't lose such a good disciple." Although she was unwilling, the enchanting woman was still very impressed with Han Yunqing's medicine appraisal skills. The setting of the medicine-requesting cave was actually difficult at first, then easy. If an expert were to seriously ponder over it, they would definitely discover that the first stage was far more difficult than the second and third stages. If Han Yunqing had not passed the first stage, no matter how good Gu Beiyue's medical skills were or how strange Long Fei Ye's internal energy was, they would not have been able to perform. Back then, the medicine hut's founder, the medicine ancestor, had set up these 3 tests to test one's alchemy skills. Only after passing the test would one be qualified to enter the medicine-requesting cave. The king of medicine could hear the sarcasm in the enchanting woman's voice, but he was not in the mood to care about it. At this moment, his heart was filled with melancholy. When Han Yunqing and the others got the muscle-growing ointment, how should he face them? If he told Han Yunqing that he was willing to teach her everything he had learned in his life and would not force her to stay in the medicine hut, would she take it for granted that today's events did not happen? The king of medicine did not dare to barge in, so he just waited outside. Worry, regret. At this moment, Han Yunqing and the others were still moving forward. Unlike the short tunnel from before, this tunnel was especially long. It was spring now, and they were in a cave. The temperature inside the cave was definitely lower than outside. However, the further they walked, the hotter it became. They could only feel a hot current in front of them. Could there be a big fire in front? Long Fei Yi was still vigilant. If there was a big fire, there would definitely be light. It wouldn't be so dark. Gu Beiyue said. Based on the current heat of the current, if there was a fire, they should be able to see the light. Han Yunqing grew curious. Besides fire, are there any other sources of heat? Sources of heat? Gu Beiyue didn't understand. Long Fei Yi had long gotten used to Han Yunqing's strange new words. It's a general term for anything that can generate heat, Han Yunqing explained. Aside from open flames, there were many other things that could generate heat in the modern world. In ancient times, she could only think of natural geothermal heat. There were many ways to generate geothermal heat, such as steam or hot springs. If it was just these 2, it wouldn't be so frightening. Han Yunqing would most likely encounter molten lava. They'd already passed the 3 trials, so the medicine-requesting cave wouldn't go back on their word and make things difficult for them, right? If there's nothing that can generate heat with open flames, then it's hard to say. The world is so big, nothing is too strange, Gu Beiyue said mildly. His words reminded Han Yunqing of something. After all, there were plenty of things in Cloud Realm continent that she couldn't explain with science, so there was no point in analyzing them. They'd find out once they reached the front. There seemed to be a long way to go. In the silence, Han Yunqing spoke up first. Dr. Gu, your medical skills aren't just at the 5th rank, right? She'd long wanted to know if this guy could treat half-day cough. This one never went to the medical academy to take the advancement exams, so I'm not sure what rank I'm at now. But I should be at the 6th rank, Gu Beiyue was very modest. Dr. Gu, does the medical academy's academy head know that you're so modest? Han Yunqing teased. Even Academy head Gu couldn't treat whooping cough, but Gu Beiyue could write down the correct prescription on his first try. He had to be at the 7th rank at the very least. Most likely, Academy head Gu didn't test the medicine himself. Otherwise, this illness would be a small matter to him. Esteemed Wang Fei knows as well that the prescription is just a little complicated, but the ingredients used aren't unorthodox. Han Yunqing agreed with Gu Beiyue's explanation. If he needed unorthodox ingredients, her detox system might not have all of them. In this way, the second round wasn't as difficult as the first round. Esteemed Wang Fei, this one is puzzled. How did you happen to have those 17 ingredients in your hands? Gu Beiyue had been holding back for a long time. It was very normal for people in the medical world to carry medicine with them. Doctors would have medical kits and medicine boxes, and pharmacists would have medicine boxes and medicine bags. However, those 17 ingredients were all cough medicines and belonged to the same category. Normally, they wouldn't be used at the same time, so no one would carry all of them with them. Strangest of all, Han Yunqing had brought along medicinal powders that could be taken immediately after being boiled. Although he wasn't a pharmacist, Gu Beiyue was still well aware of many pharmaceutical principles. Not every medicine could be ground into powder and taken directly. Some medicines needed to be processed before they were ground into powder, and some needed to be processed after they were ground. Moreover, different prescriptions had different ways of processing the medicine. He could taste it when he drank the medicine. Han Yunqing's powders had been processed according to the prescription. How could such a thing be a coincidence? Gu Beiyue didn't voice out the real doubts in his heart, but Han Yunqing knew that this matter couldn't be concealed. She had no choice but to take out so many powders in front of everyone. There was nothing she could do. She glanced at Long Fei Yi from the corner of her eye. Seeing that guy's expressionless face and silent, she knew that he was also waiting for an answer. She didn't mean to hide the matter of her transmigration. It was very difficult to explain, and she didn't even know how she transmigrated, so how could she explain it to them? As for her high-tech detox system, it was even harder to explain. She estimated that even if she explained for 3 days and 3 nights, they would still have a lot of questions. She didn't want to find trouble for herself. Han Yunqing pondered for a moment and answered, "This isn't a coincidence, there's a secret." When she said this, Long Fei Yi immediately looked over. Han Yunqing curled her finger and beckoned him over with a smile. "It's a secret. Speak softly." Long Fei Yi's expression was cold, but his actions were very obedient. He immediately drew closer. Han Yunqing pulled him closer to Gu Beiyue and whispered, "Because I inherited the poison sex poison storage space." Han Yunqing explained the poison sex poison storage space in a concise manner. However, she described the detox system's special functions as the poison storage space. In reality, the poison storage space only stored poisons. Only the detox system could store medicines and identify them. With this explanation, Long Fei Yi and Gu Beiyue both understood. They were both surprised and delighted. Long Fei Yi stroked Han Yunqing's bangs. "You've grown wings now. You dare to hide good things from this prince?" Han Yunqing's smile was very stiff. "I only fully opened the space recently and figured it out. I was still confused before. I had to figure it out first before telling you." "What's the latest time?" Long Fei asked next. "When I went to the poison sex altar," Han Yunqing replied. "Recently?" Long Fei Yi's voice changed. Han Yunqing smiled apologetically. "I was afraid you wouldn't believe me, but I found it quite unbelievable myself." Seeing Han Yunqing pressed so hard, Gu Beiyue suddenly exclaimed, "Esteemed Wang Fei, does that mean Lady Tianxin is from the poison sect?" He was clearly trying to save the situation, so Long Fei Yi didn't pursue Han Yunqing any further. Han Yunqing wanted nothing more than for someone to help her out of this predicament. She hastily replied to Gu Beiyue, "I'm not related to the Han family by blood. My mother married Han Kanggan because she was pregnant with me. My mother is Mu Xian of Medicine City's Mu family. My father is from the poison sect. She had inexplicably trusted Gu Beiyue a long time ago and didn't hide many things from him. Now, she trusted him even more. Gu Beiyue was an absolute actor. He was startled at first, then hastily bowed. Don't worry, esteemed Wang Fei. This one will definitely not say a word about this matter. Long Fei Yi sneered from the side. He didn't know why someone as smart as Han Yunqing would trust Gu Beiyue so much. Han Yunqing simply trusted him so much that she nodded without saying anything else. This one has heard that pill masters can cultivate a medicine storage space, but I didn't expect the poison sect to have such a good thing as well. Esteemed Wang Fei didn't need to cultivate and inherited it. It's truly a great fortune, Gu Beiyue sighed with emotion. Long Fei Yi agreed with these words. Being a remnant of the poison sect had brought Han Yunqing a lot of trouble, but at the very least, they'd given her something good as compensation. Gu Beiyue and Han Yunqing's questions had been answered, but Long Fei Yi still had another question. He didn't understand how Gu Beiyue had managed to repulse his vitality. After all, Gu Beiyue's dantian was already crippled, so there was no way he could do that. He couldn't ask this question in front of Han Yunqing, so Long Fei Yi could only continue to hold it in. They continued to walk forward. After walking for a while, they finally saw a light up ahead. The heat wave coming at them grew hotter and hotter, but the light was very weak, like a lamp. They hurried over and passed through an open stone door. The heat wave was so strong that they couldn't open their eyes. But they still opened them wide because they were stunned by what they saw. Heavens! What did they just see? Chapter 629. What did Han Yunqing and the rest see? They saw a giant bronze furnace standing right in front of them. It was at least 10 meters tall, dignified, and exuded an aura of antiquity. It looked very much like a Taoist furnace for refining pills. It had 3 levels, each with 3 arched doors. Even someone as tall as Long Fei Yi could pass through them easily. Han Yunqing couldn't help but wonder if even the legendary Taishang Lao Jun, great sage Guansuan's alchemy furnace wasn't as big as this. What kind of treasure did the medicine-requesting cave make with such a big furnace? The heat they felt was coming from this big medicine furnace. Unfortunately, there was no fire in the big medicine furnace. Han Yunqing used her hand to block out the heat and could just barely make out the various ingredients placed in the bottom of the furnace. There were also plenty of unfinished pills in there. There was no fire, only heat, so it wasn't clear if this counted as refining medicine. In that case, this furnace shouldn't be called a medicine furnace, but an alchemy furnace. Han Yunqing finally understood why the medicine-requesting cave wasn't under the jurisdiction of the King of Medicine. In the field of medicine, there were still big differences between medicinal pills and medicinal pills. Medicinal pills were usually made from medicinal herbs and were used to treat illnesses and injuries. They were based on the natural principles of the human body. Medicinal pills, on the other hand, were mainly made from minerals and a small amount of medicinal herbs. They had special effects that went against the natural order. It was obvious that the medicine-requesting cave focused on medicinal pills. They can refine pills without a fire. There must be a secret to this furnace, Gu Beiyue was very interested. Although the heat was strong, they still circled around the alchemy furnace to inspect it, but didn't see a single flame. Medicinal pills aren't popular in Cloud Realm continent, right? Han Yunqing asked in bewilderment. From what she understood, medicinal pills didn't have a market in Cloud Realm continent. Neither did the emperors of the various countries seek out miraculous pills for immortality. What was the point of making such a big alchemy furnace? Although she was curious, Han Yunqing didn't forget her business. They had worked so hard to find the muscle-growing ointment. She shouted, "Is anyone there?" She shouted 3 times in a row, and the echoes overlapped. Other than that, there was no other response. That was strange. There were stone walls all around, and this was a completely sealed cave. Could there really be no one here? Han Yunqing originally had a good impression of the medicine hut. She was even in awe of it. However, after this trip, her good impression of the medicine hut was completely gone. All that was left was distrust. She exclaimed, "Have we been cheated? It's unlikely. We're the dignified medicine hut, the head of the pharmaceutical industry. We wouldn't be so dishonest," Gu Beiyue said seriously. "Is anyone there? Someone come. Give me an explanation." Han Yunqing shouted again. Unfortunately, no one responded to her. She looked around in silence for a long time. The entire cave was quiet, as if there really was no one here. Being in the heat for so long had made her heart burn with anger. Add that to the difficulties they'd faced along the way, and Han Yunqing's dissatisfaction with the medicine-requesting cave had reached its limit. She raged, "We've already passed the 3 trials, so what more do you want? Petty, wishy-washy, despicable, shameless. If you can't afford the medicine, then don't agree. If no one comes, do you believe this Wang Fei won't destroy this furnace?" Lil Thing and Mama Yunxi's hearts were growing more and more in sync. It stood on Gu Beiyue's shoulder and was already grinding its teeth. Abruptly, a strange voice rose up. "So noisy. Damned girl, you dare to threaten the old man's treasured furnace? The old man will give you one chance. Apologize to the old man's treasured furnace right now, or else the old man won't forgive you." There was someone. Where was he? Long Fei Yi and Gu Beiyue looked around vigilantly, but Han Yunqing wasn't afraid. She said coldly, "Stop pretending to be mysterious and come out." At this moment, an old man walked out from the top floor of the alchemy furnace. More accurately, he was an ugly old man. His neck was shrunk, his hair disheveled, and his face wrinkled like an old monster. Despite being as thin as firewood, he was dressed in loose black robes that concealed his body, leaving only his head exposed. He knew they were here for the survival muscle ointment and was looking for the medicine when Han Yunqing's ruckus gave him a headache. He looked down at Han Yunqing's group and said darkly, "Damned girl, apologize." "And if I don't?" Han Yunqing retorted. "You'll have to bear the consequences." The old man was furious. Han Yunqing ignored him and asked, "Where's your master? Tell him to come out immediately." "Who do you think you are to go back on your word?" The old man narrowed his eyes. He had heard Han Yunqing scolding him for being despicable, shameless, petty, and dawdling. He asked coldly, "What medicine are you here for?" "Muscle growth ointment." Han Yunqing answered. "Wait." The old man turned back to the alchemy furnace and went from the 3rd floor to the 1st floor. He rummaged through the alchemy furnace and finally found a bottle of muscle growth ointment. He walked out of the arched door on the 1st floor and went straight to Han Yunqing. Up close, the wrinkles on the old man's face looked even scarier. Han Yunqing wasn't afraid, but Long Fei Yi still pulled her behind him immediately. He faced the old man. "You're the master of the medicine-requesting cave." "That's right. Here, this is the medicine you asked for." The old man presented the muscle growth ointment to Long Fei Yi. His palm was so thin that only bones were left. His fingernails were longer than his fingers and were covered in medicinal stains. He said, "You're quite capable to be able to pass the 3 stages. Hee, since you're here today, old man can even afford spirit pills, let alone a mere muscle growth ointment." Long Fei Yi, who was a germaphobe, felt disgusted at the sight of the old man's hand. He picked up the muscle growth ointment with 2 fingers and didn't throw it to Han Yunqing. Instead, he threw it to Gu Beiyue and pushed Gu Beiyue away. Han Yunqing naturally wanted to leave. She had already gotten what she wanted, so what was the point of talking so much? Besides, it was so hot here. Who knew if she would get sick from staying here for too long? "Stupid girl, stop right there." The old man did not give up. "You want to leave after scolding me? It's not that easy." Han Yunqing turned around impatiently and snorted. Don't tell me you don't know what your subordinates have done. Don't tell me you don't know that we've been waiting here for a long time. Despicable, shameless, petty, and dawdling. Am I wrong to scold you? The old man sized up Han Yunqing and suddenly felt a sense of familiarity. All these years, only the boy he doted on the most dared to speak to him like this. Although he was familiar with her, the old man was still very angry. He was as stubborn as a child. Old man, I don't care. No matter what, you have to kowtow and apologize to old man's furnace. You scared it. Han Yunqing almost suspected that there was something wrong with this old man's mind. She was in a hurry to apply medicine and treat Gu Beiyue's wounds, so she didn't fuss over it. Okay. Furnace, I'm sorry. I said the wrong thing just now. It was fine to apologize, but forget about kowtowing. Unexpectedly, the old man insisted. Kneel down and kowtow. Before Han Yunqing could flare up, Long Fei Yi was the first to fly into a rage. Pretending to be crazy and acting dumb. Don't be so shameless. The old man suddenly grabbed a ball of fire out of thin air. Seeing this, Han Yunqing and the other two were shocked. What the hell was this? Han Yunqing felt that it was already very impressive that she could grab poison out of thin air, but she didn't expect this old man to be able to make fire out of thin air. What kind of martial arts was this? Could it be related to this alchemy furnace that could generate heat without fire? Suddenly, Han Yunqing realized that this cave was filled with strangeness. Even the fire in the old man's hand was very strange. It was different from ordinary flames. Whoever passed the first round of medicine appraisal, stand aside, the old man said in annoyance. It seemed like he was going to let go of the person who passed the first round. Han Yunqing stepped out from behind Long Fei Yi. It was me. The old man was stunned for a moment before he raised his hand to extinguish the fire. He stared at Han Yunqing and muttered something with a conflicted expression. After a while, his facial features were all scrunched together. Coupled with the wrinkles on his face really looked like an old tangerine. He dragged his long black robe and paced back and forth as if he was in great pain. Han Yunqing was scared out of her wits. She thought that there must be something wrong with this old man's head. No matter how powerful a person was, they weren't scary. Lunatics were the scariest because you couldn't predict what they would do. Gu Beiyue and Long Fei Yi frowned as they watched. Both of them thought of the same person, medicine fiend Gu Qi Sha. Although there were many differences, there were still some similarities. Therefore, in their opinion, this old man was either pretending to be crazy or had a strange temper. No matter what it was, they didn't have time to waste here. They had to leave as soon as possible. This place was very strange and not a place to stay for long. Let's go. Long Fei Yi said in a low voice. Before they could move, the old man suddenly turned to look at Han Yunqing and sneered. TSK, I didn't expect a girl to be so capable. That old thing Sun Zhong was right to take you as his disciple. His tone was full of disdain for women. Han Yunqing didn't argue. Old senior, we've passed all 3 rounds and I apologize. Can we leave now? Han Yunqing had already secretly decided that if the old man made things difficult for them again, she would let the little thing out and eat all his medicinal pills, not leaving a single one behind. However, for some reason, the old man said, since you're already Sun Zhong's disciple, old man won't take you as his disciple. If you help the old man find someone, the old man will leave medicine requesting cave to you. How about that? Han Yunqing was even more certain that this old man was crazy. Crazy. In order to leave as soon as possible, she immediately agreed. Sure, who are you looking for? My disciple. The old man fell into deep thought as he spoke. No one knew what he was thinking, but a smile appeared on his terrifying face. It was so benevolent that one could overlook his old and ugly appearance. After a while, he said, he should be in his 20s now. He's a genius. No, he's a genius. He can identify thousands of medicines at such a young age and can even come up with many prescriptions. Hearing this, Han Yunqing and the other two exchanged glances. Because they immediately thought of one person, Gu Qi Sha, who was also Gu. Such an evaluation was exclusive to Gu. What's his name? Han Yunqing asked anxiously. The old man laughed. Little madman. Ha, old man is old lunatic, and he's little madman. What does he look like? Han Yunqing asked again. The old man immediately took out a portrait of a 10-year-old boy with exquisite facial features and a pair of long and narrow peach blossom eyes. He was especially good-looking. Han Yunqing thought of Gu again, and her heart unconsciously raced. Gu, how did he know that the tendon-growing ointment was in the medicine hut? He usually wouldn't leave no matter what, so why didn't he follow them this time? Chapter 630. Thinking of Gu's abnormality this time and looking at the little boy's long, narrow, and beautiful peach blossom eyes in the portrait, Han Yunqing couldn't help but suspect Gu. That guy was a genius in the pharmaceutical world and grew up being fed medicine in Medical City. Later on, he was expelled from Medical City for some reason. If she remembered correctly, Gu wasn't very old when he left Medical City and hadn't established Medicine Ghost Valley yet. Where did he go after leaving Medical City? How did he establish Medicine Ghost Valley? One had to know that Medicine City wouldn't dare to be on good terms with him after he was expelled from Medical City. Where did he get the financial resources and herbs to establish Medicine Ghost Valley? Why did little madman leave Medicine Requesting Cave? Han Yunqing asked. Old Zhao suddenly looked over angrily. Find him according to the portrait. As for the rest. Hee, mind your own business. Knowing that he had a strange temper and was unpredictable, Han Yunqing didn't argue with him and said patiently, it's been more than 10 years. No one knows what he's become. You might not be able to recognize him even if he stood in front of you. How are you going to find him based on this portrait? Old Zhao pondered as he stared at Han Yunqing. For some reason, tears streamed down his face. It's all old man's fault. Old man shouldn't have hit him back then. Why did you hit him? Han Yunqing was shocked. If he left because he was beaten, how serious was the beating? That day, old Zhao was about to say it when he suddenly stopped. Stupid girl, old man's Medicine Requesting Cave isn't that easy to obtain. If you can find him based on this portrait, the Medicine Requesting Cave is yours. Actually, he also wanted to tell Han Yunqing more information about the search, but he didn't know where the child came from or what his name was. He didn't even know his real age. Many years ago, when he went to the back of the mountain to pick herbs, he met the child by chance. He thought that the child was one of Sun Zhong's medicine boys who came to steal herbs. Who knew that when he went closer, he would find that the child was eating raw herbs with relish. This was the first time he had seen a child who ate medicinal herbs as if they were rice. He wanted to go over and ask, but when the child found out, he ran away. He actually found a secret passage and ran from the back of the mountain to the pill refining cave to hide. He was the only one who knew about the secret passageway to the pill refining cave. It was only for him to enter and exit when he was gathering herbs. He couldn't figure out how that child had managed to find it. He didn't believe in coincidences. He closed the exit of the secret passage and trapped the child in the alchemy cave. He patiently confronted the child for 3 days and 3 nights. In the end, the child finally surrendered and said that he wanted to eat. He gave the child hot food. He didn't know how long it had been since the child had eaten hot food, but the child's stomach almost burst. After a series of inquiries, he was shocked to find out that the little fellow actually found him by smelling the medicinal pills. The little fellow could even accurately tell how many medicinal pills were mixed with medicinal herbs. He was pleasantly surprised. He had been unable to find a successor to the medicine-requesting cave all this time. He didn't expect that the heavens would send him a genius. After that day, he took the little fellow in as his disciple and taught him medicinal skills. He planned to teach him alchemy skills after he mastered all the medicinal skills in the medicine hut. Unfortunately, he didn't know what happened, but when old Zao thought of this, he became especially gloomy. He asked coldly, "Stupid girl, are you looking for it within 3 years?" "Yes. But we have to write down the conditions clearly in black and white, lest when the time comes." Before Han Yunqing could finish, old Zao said coldly, "Men, bring me a brush and ink." When they saw old Zao write down the contract, not to mention Han Yunqing, even Long Fei Yi and Gu Beiyue were very surprised. Although old Zao had a strange temper and was unpredictable, he was very clear-headed. He wasn't a lunatic, nor was he a fool. He just found someone and gave her the medicine-requesting cave. Han Yunqing really felt like she had been smashed by money. She didn't believe it. "Are you sure?" she asked seriously. "Why? You can't find him for 3 years." Old Zao asked disdainfully. Before Han Yunqing could answer, Long Fei Yi took the contract. "It's a deal." What was there to hesitate about when encountering such a good thing? If old Zao went back on his word, Han Yunqing wouldn't even have time to cry. This contract looked easy, but thinking about it carefully, it wasn't easy. If not for Han Yunqi's amazing appraisal skills, they wouldn't have met old Zao, and old Zao wouldn't have taken a fancy to Han Yunqing. It's a deal. Old Zao had no regrets. The thing he felt most guilty about in his life was hitting that child. If someone could help him find that child, he wouldn't hesitate to pay any price. He knew that when facing this group of people, only by offering high conditions would they take a fancy to him and be willing to put in effort to find him. He could still wait for 3 years. Just as he was about to leave, Han Yunqing asked curiously, "Old senior, how did you practice your ability to make fire out of thin air?" Helpless, old Zao pretended not to hear and walked into the alchemy furnace without looking back. Han Yunqing thought that this fire was most likely related to the alchemy furnace. She would come back and think about it carefully when she found the person. Not only did she get the muscle-growing ointment on this trip, she also unexpectedly obtained a contract. It could be said that this trip was not in vain. On the way back, Han Yunqing's footsteps were much lighter. She was excited at the thought that Gu Beiyue would be able to stand up again soon. "Dr. Gu, you can be saved," she said to Gu Beiyue seriously. Gu Beiyue's smile was always gentle and elegant. This time, his smile was especially bright. "Thank you, Princess Consort." "Thank you, Your Highness Duke of Qin." "It's my duty." "What are you thanking me for?" Han Yunqing smiled. Long Fei Yi was still expressionless. He quickly changed the topic. "Could that child be Gu?" "We'll know when we ask," Gu Beiyue said. Han Yunqing actually didn't hope that the child was Gu. From old Zao's reaction, that child must have suffered greatly back then. "Let's not talk about this anymore. We have 3 years anyway. Even if we don't find him, we won't lose anything. Let's hurry back and apply the medicine." She was looking forward to seeing Gu Beiyue stand up. As soon as she exited the cave, Han Yunqing saw a person who ruined her mood. It was the King of Medicine. The King of Medicine had been waiting here for a long time. He had thought that Han Yunqing and the others would come out after going in to get the medicine. Who knew that they would be gone for so long? Han Yunqing and the other two tacitly treated the King of Medicine as heir. They walked around him and left without looking back. However, the King of Medicine stopped them with one sentence. He said, "Han Yunqing, do you know how to use the muscle growth ointment? Could it be that the use of this medicine was different from other ointment?" "What are you trying to say?" Han Yunqing asked coldly. "The muscle growth ointment must be applied together with other medicine." "Follow the old man," the King of Medicine said seriously. This time, he sincerely wanted to help. Why should I believe you? Han Yunqing asked coldly. The king of medicine stroked his beard with a serious expression. Stinky girl, master still has a medicine book to give you. Come here. Han Yunqing chuckled. I don't care. You. The king of medicine's expression became even more serious. Stinky girl, you acknowledged the old man as your master in front of everyone in Medicine City. What, do you want to become Medicine City's enemy? The reason why Han Yunqing didn't sever her master-disciple relationship with the king of medicine on the spot was because she was afraid of this point. She didn't expect that this old man would use this to threaten her. In the end, the authority of the medicine world was still the king of medicine. That rotten old man from the medicine requesting cave didn't have any influence in the outside world. She and Long Feiyi had finally gained control of Medicine City after much difficulty. If they fell out with the king of medicine and lost Medicine City, wouldn't they become the biggest joke in the world? There were some things that only the outside world knew if they were good or bad. Gu will use this medicine, won't he? Long Feiyi asked in a low voice. If the king of medicine insisted on keeping Han Yunqing, not to mention Medicine City, even if he had to lose 10 medicine cities, he would still take her away. Han Yunqing understood the meaning behind Long Feiyi's words. The situation in the western region hadn't stabilized yet, so she didn't want another storm to arise in Medicine City. Even more so, she didn't want another trouble for Long Feiyi. She said, that old ghost might not know, otherwise he would have said it long ago. Let's go take a look first. All right. Long Feiyi nodded. They followed the king of medicine to the medicine hut garden. They originally thought that the king of medicine would play some tricks, but who knew that the king of medicine would seriously prepare the medicine and apply it on Gu Beiyue's wounds without saying anything else. After taking care of everything, he gave Han Yunqing 2 portions of medicinal powder. Use the cyan one in the morning and the white one at night. Mix them together with the muscle growth ointment. Remember, you must use warm water. Apply it to the wounds in the morning and in the evening. After the medicine is used up, you will fully recover after 100 days of rest. Han Yunqing looked suspiciously at Gu Beiyue. Seeing Gu Beiyue nod, she accepted the 2 portions of medicine. The king of medicine took out a wooden box and opened it for Han Yunqing to see. Inside was a set of ancient books with the word, medicine, in the title. With your talent, your master won't teach you step by step. Take this set of medicine books with you and read them. If you don't understand, you can write a letter to ask. This, in other words, he was willing to teach her medicine skills but would no longer force her to stay in the medicine hut. Could it be that the king of medicine had changed his mind? Unlike when she faced the disheveled old man previously, Han Yunqing accepted the medicine books without hesitation this time. All right. Although Han Yunqing was pleasantly surprised, Gu Beiyue wasn't surprised because Han Yunqing deserved these special cases. No matter who met her, they couldn't force her and could only be convinced. And Long Feiyi, who had Han Yunqing, evaluated the king of medicine in his heart. Adapt to the circumstances. Just like that, Han Yunqing and the rest left the medicine hut in satisfaction. The king of medicine secretly rejoiced. Although Han Yunqing didn't give him a good look, as long as she accepted the medicine books, this master-disciple relationship would be real. The medicine hut needed this kind of disciple. As for the successor who would guard the medicine hut for him, he could only slowly search for that person. His Excellency Pill King had given Han Yunqing an extremely difficult medicine tome so that she could write to him more often. That way, he'd be able to ease their relationship as master and disciple. However, not long after Han Yunqing left the medicine hut, she sent someone to deliver a complete set of medicine books to Mu Linger. She thought that this set of books would be more valuable in Mu Linger's hands than in her own. Mu Linger was now the pillar of support for Pill Fiend Pharmacy. By the time they returned to Yaoshui Prefecture, the muscle-growing ointment had been used up. Gu Beiyue examined his wounds several times and confirmed that the ointment was effective. He only needed to rest in bed for 100 days to fully recover. Han Yunqing's heart finally settled back into her chest. Mu Ling'er had sent a letter asking about Gu's whereabouts, and Han Yunqing was also looking for him. She had to ask about the disheveled old man. She hadn't even looked for Gu when he came knocking on her door. "Poison lass, I have something to tell you." Chapter 631. Gu had great news to tell Han Yunqi, but Han Yunqing was shocked. She hurriedly put away Mu Ling'er's letter and did not notice what Gu had said in her panic. Gu looked behind her suspiciously, but Han Yunqing quickly diverted his attention. "You're finally back. I have something very important to tell you." Gu did not take it seriously and asked suspiciously, "Poison lass, what are you hiding behind your back?" "Gu, do you know that there's an elixir refinement cave in the medicine requesting cave?" Han Yunqing asked anxiously. A complicated look flashed past Gu's eyes. He did not pursue the matter of what Han Yunqing was hiding behind her back. He smiled and said, "I've never been there. How would I know?" Han Yunqing felt that he was a little strange, but she could not pinpoint exactly what was strange about him. She asked again, "There's a very strange alchemy furnace in the elixir refinement cave. There's no fire, but it heats up. Do you know about it?" Gu almost nodded, but luckily he reacted quickly. "Didn't I just say that I've never been there? How would I know? Are you an idiot?" "Oh." Han Yunqing continued, "There's also a terrible old man in the elixir refinement cave. He has a very strange temper. He's comparable to you." "Poison lass, you're comparing Chi brother to a terrible old man?" Gu was angry. "He's very similar to your disguise in the Medicine Ghost Valley. He wears a black robe, his hands are very thin, and he laughs strangely." Han Yunqing said seriously. Seeing Gu Qixiao's strange expression, she continued, "But there's one thing that's completely different." "What?" Gu was indeed curious. "That terrible old man is very pitiful, but you're not. Ha, you're more detestable." Han Yunqing laughed. Gu did not retort after being called detestable. He asked, "How is that old man pitiful?" Was this concern? Previously, Han Yunqing was only guessing. Now, she was basically certain that Gu was the child in the portrait. Because, based on her understanding of him, if it wasn't an old acquaintance or someone important to him, he would never ask about it. After this guy was expelled from Medical City, he should be hiding in the medicine hut. Why did the disheveled old man hit him? Was he not going to return just because he was hit? Han Yunqing knew that no matter what the situation was, this was a sad past. Gu might not be willing to let others know. The contract was precious, but Gu's privacy was more important. Han Yunqing decided not to ask. Because he's detestable. The 3 trials of the medicine requesting cave were especially difficult. "We almost died inside," Han Yunqing said seriously. "What does this have to do with pity?" Gu frowned. "Take a guess." Han Yunqing smiled. Gu's frown deepened. "What does it have to do with?" "Because a detestable person must have a pitiful side." Han Yunqing laughed out loud. "Stupid." So, was she joking? Boring. Gu rolled his eyes at her. Han Yunqing secretly heaved a sigh of relief, knowing that he would not ask anymore. Gu did not ask anymore. He was so distracted that he forgot the good news he wanted to tell Han Yunqing. He drank a few mouthfuls of tea and left. Han Yunqing followed a few steps, but unfortunately, Gu climbed over the wall and disappeared. Seeing him like this, Han Yunqing was even more certain that the disheveled old man was looking for Gu. After Gu left the courtyard, he did not stop for a day and went straight to the medicine hut. He did not know what he was doing here. He would never step into the pill refinement cave again in his life, and he would never see his master again. He was sitting on a tall tree in the mountain behind the pill refinement cave, overlooking the exit of the secret passage. He was waiting. 3 days and 3 nights later, when the Pill King came out of the secret passage, he immediately turned around and left without a second look. He ran like a madman all the way back to Yaoshui Prefecture. When the horse stopped, he was so tired that he fell off and lay on his back on the grass, viciousness flashing through his eyes. He thought that not going back for revenge was already the greatest mercy he could have shown. He didn't get up even when the sky turned dark. Instead, he unknowingly fell asleep. This night was a nightmare. In his dreams, apart from Medical City, there was only the Pill Refinement Cave. Xiaoqi had left Medical City and come to Medicine City only to avoid Academy Head Gu's pursuit, not to make a living with his medical skills. He looked down on all the clans in Medicine City and knew that no one would dare take him in. He had set his sights on the medicine hut. Its isolation from the world allowed him to conceal his identity and live in seclusion. Despite his young age, Xiaoqi was more considerate than an adult. How could his young heart tire? He thought of a foolproof plan to meet the King of Medicine by chance. But by the time he snuck into the medicine forest and found the medicine hut, he was already exhausted. He didn't have any dry rations on him, so no matter how much he hated medicine, he had to rely on it to survive. He found a secluded medicinal field and secretly ate herbs for several days. It wasn't until he met the old man who made medicinal pills that Xiaoqi finally got to eat hot food. He never thought that he would have a master, much less a master who was like his own grandfather. His master cooked for him every day, taught him medicine and martial arts, and even found ways to get him candied haws from outside. It was as if he had returned to his childhood in the poison sect's forbidden grounds. Carefree, loved, and protected. No one knew that no matter how much hatred filled his heart, those happy times in the poison sect's forbidden grounds would forever occupy a corner of his heart. Although he didn't want to admit it, he still longed to go back to his childhood. His master's kindness meant that he didn't have to rush to grow up. Xiaoqi had already secretly vowed to accompany his master for the rest of his life and never leave the pill refining cave. But on that day, all his kindness was replaced by hatred. That day, Xiaoqi was practicing martial arts next to the alchemy furnace as usual when he accidentally kicked it. He sat on the ground in pain and hugged his leg, unable to move. Unexpectedly, a flame suddenly smashed into Xiaoqi's back. Then his master flew over and scolded him, "Little brat, how dare you be so rude to the old man's precious furnace?" The flames burned Xiaoqi's clothes. Fortunately, he reacted in time and rolled on the ground to extinguish the flames. Before he could understand what was going on, his master opened another flame. This time, Xiaoqi was thoroughly shocked. "Master! Stinking brat, the old man was kind enough to pick you up. How dare you be so rude to the old man's precious furnace?" His master was as ruthless as a devil. Xiaoqi hadn't thought of his father in a long time. This time, he actually saw his father's expression on his master's face. He'd struggled to walk out of Medical City's shadow, but in the blink of an eye, he was back in a nightmare. He froze on the ground, his entire body trembling. Seeing his master approach step by step, he felt like he was back in Medical City's secret room. He wanted to run, but he couldn't move. As soon as his master got close, he grabbed Xiaoqi by the collar and pulled him up, forcing him to kneel before the alchemy furnace. "Kowtow. Apologize." "No." Xiaoqi was stubborn. No matter how scared he was, he would never bow his head. "You're courting death." His master slapped Old Seventh's neck, forcing him to bow his head. But the force was too strong, and Xiaoqi fell forward onto the ground. His master didn't let him go. He stubbornly forced him to bow to the alchemy furnace. "Get up and kowtow." Xiaoqi lay on the ground powerlessly. He couldn't get up, nor did he want to. Who would have thought that his master would pull him up and then put him down harshly? Little Qi fell down on all fours. His heart, liver, spleen, lungs, and kidneys were all shattered. However, his head was still raised. He would not kowtow. Stinking brat, the old man will ask you one last time. Will you kowtow or not? Will you admit your mistake? His master asked angrily. Shao-Chi smiled. Master, your disciple will ask you one last time. Is your disciple more important, or is the alchemy furnace more important? His master didn't think at all. Of course the furnace is more important. Kowtow and admit your mistake now. Shao-Chi was obviously smiling, but his tears couldn't stop flowing. He didn't say anything. He just lay on the ground and kowtowed. His forehead was covered with blood. Only then was his master satisfied. You little brat, remember this for this old man. In the future, if you dare to be rude to the furnace, get out. The old man doesn't care about you. After he finished speaking, he staggered a few steps back. He couldn't stand steadily. He took the medicinal pills, so he couldn't control his temper. Unfortunately, Shao-Chi didn't see it. He flew back into the alchemy furnace. Shao-Chi lay on the ground. His eyes were empty, and he was in complete despair. It wasn't easy to give birth to hope from despair, but he suddenly found that he didn't have any reason to be strong. Shao-Chi didn't cry. He was laughing. He was laughing at himself for being so stupid, for being so greedy, and for not being able to grow up. He couldn't even rely on his biological father. How could he be so stupid to trust an old man? That night, his master fell asleep because of the medicinal pills. Shao-Chi stole all of his silver, all of his medicinal seeds, and left through a secret passage. When the sun shone on Gu's face, Gu immediately opened his eyes. He had completely forgotten what he had dreamed of last night. He raised his head and faced the sun. His lips curved into a smile that was even more brilliant than the sun. He jumped down from the tree and went straight to Long Fei Ye's courtyard. He had forgotten to tell Han Yunqing the good news yesterday. Of course he had to hurry over and tell her. Han Yunqing had just woken up. She was drinking tea with Long Fei Yi and Gu Beiyue in the courtyard. After returning from the medicinal hut, they had been paying attention to the situation of the three powers in the west. Ning Cheng had stepped forward to mediate the assassination of Empress Shui. He had invited Duan Muyao to the Chu clan's barracks to investigate. The Chu clan had also expressed their willingness to cooperate. Han Yunqing and Long Fei Yi discussed this matter. Gu Beiyue silently listened to them. Although Chu Tianin hadn't arrived yet, he was still very confident in his own judgment. Oh my, you're all here. Come, come, come. Let me tell you some good news. Gu chuckled. Unexpectedly, Tang Li suddenly scurried out from the side. His face was full of fear. Duke of Qin, bad news. Bad news. What was going on? Han Yunqing and the others looked at Gu, then at Tang Li. They suddenly didn't know whether to listen to the good news or the bad news first. However, Tang Li spoke before Gu could. Duke of Qin, my father is here. Aunt Ru is also here. Tang Zijin and Aunt Ru. Why had they come to Yaoshui Prefecture at this time? Had they come directly to take Tang Li away? Han Yunqing was puzzled. Long Fei Yi didn't think much of it. He asked Gu, what good news? Chapter 632. It was rare for Long Fei Yi to take Gu's words so seriously, but Gu only smiled and said, take a guess. Long Fei Yi didn't say anything and simply glared at Gu. If looks could kill, Gu would have already evaporated into thin air. What kind of good news could you possibly have? Han Yunqing rolled her eyes. I'll give you guys a chance to attack Medical City. How about it? Gu lowered his voice. This time, even the restless Tang Li calmed down and looked nervously at Gu. They didn't have enough power to deal with Medical City at the moment. Pill Fiend Pharmacy and Gu Qi Sha had already offended them by joining forces. If they were careless and offended them again, they'd be in big trouble. What did you do to head Elder Ling? Han Yunqing asked suspiciously. To Gu, killing head Elder Ling wasn't enough to vent his anger. Everything Academy head Gu and head Elder Ling had done was for the sake of fame and fortune. He wanted to destroy their reputations and let them have a taste of the humiliation of having an egg smashed in their faces. A trace of malice flashed through Gu's eyes, but he still chuckled. I haven't done anything yet. As he spoke, he leaned forward and put an arm on Long Fei Ye's shoulder like they were best buddies. Long Fei Ye, do you want to do something big together? As soon as he said that, Long Fei Ye abruptly dodged his arm, causing Gu to almost fall to the ground. Everyone looked over, causing Gu to feel incomparably embarrassed. Long Fei Ye, on the other hand, acted as if nothing had happened. What kind of trick? Let's hear it. Except for Han Yunqing, anyone who provoked Long Fei Ye, regardless of gender, friend or foe, was asking for a snub. Gu pursed his lips and finally spilled the beans. He had been spying on head Elder Ling and Madame Lianxin in the Tian and Imperial Palace for a long time. Madame Lianxin had repeatedly thrown herself at head Elder Ling, only to be rejected time and time again. In the end, resentment grew in her heart and she wanted to take revenge on head Elder Ling. Thus, Gu used the identity of Pill Fiend Gu Qi Sha to curry favor with Madame Lianxin. As long as we promise to let the Mu family live, she is willing to reveal the matter of the induced labor. Gu said. Once this matter was exposed, it would definitely cause a huge uproar and cause irreparable damage to Medical City. No matter what, Great Elder Ling would definitely be punished and pushed out to bear all the responsibility. If they wanted to shake Medical City, they had to first shake its reputation. This was extremely good news for both Long Fei Yi and Gu. Han Yunqing agreed without a second thought. She deserved to be spurned by the masses for doing something like induced labor, for the sake of fighting for the throne. She was more concerned about Madame Lianxin's conditions. She asked seriously, let the Mu family live? How? It wasn't easy for them to crush the Mu family. If they let go, there was a chance they would suffer a backlash. Hee, Madame Lianxin is already like a cornered dog jumping over a wall. It's fine as long as she sees some hope. Gu was quite confident in this matter. During the last Grand Medicine Testing Convention, the Mu family's qualifications to participate in the Council of Elders were revoked. Mu Yingdong was imprisoned, and most seriously, the Mu family's secret recipes and most of their medicine fields were confiscated. The Mu family had no capital to stand up again. Therefore, Madame Lianxin would be satisfied even if they could give the Mu family a little bit of benefit. If you hand it over to Ling, I'll be at ease. Han Yunqing didn't have any feelings for the Mu family, but she felt a natural kinship with her cousin, Mu Ling, In the end, the Mu family was Mu Ling-er's home. If she handed the Mu family over to Mu Ling-er, it would be a way out for Pill Fiend Pharmacy in Medicine City. After this trip to the medicine hut, both she and Long Fei Yi didn't want to see the Wang family dominate Medicine City. The Wang family was loyal and devoted, but they held an unshakable reverence for the medicine hut. If they really got into a conflict with the King of Medicine, it would affect Medicine City. If the Wang family had no choice but to switch sides, they would have no way out. If Mu Ling-er took control of the Mu family and slowly cultivated her own power, it would be a good idea. At the very least, with Mu Ling-er's temperament, Han Yunqing firmly believed that she would never oppose Pill Fiend Pharmacy. Moreover, Han Yunqing doted on Mu Ling-er too much. She couldn't bear to see her young daughter carry the infamy of being a sinner of the family. Gu was very disdainful. What can that little girl do? You can help her, can't you? I think I'll leave this matter to you and her to handle. Han Yunqing happily decided. What kind of scheme? Long Fei Yi interjected. He approved of handing the Mu family over to Mu Ling-er and rebuilding it. What he was most concerned about was how to prevent Medical City from finding out about the mastermind behind the scenes and how to prevent Madame Lianxin from betraying them. Hee, I'll have to ask you about this matter. That little girl Ling is pure and kind. She's not as evil as you, Gu said seriously. Is this guy seriously here to discuss this matter, or is he just here to bicker? If it weren't for the fact that he brought good news, Long Feiyi would have kicked him out long ago. In the end, Long Feiyi replied to Gu, you and Mu Ling discuss this matter and come up with a few ideas for this prince to consider. Gu was about to refuse when Long Feiyi added, this prince will give you 10 days. If you can't come up with an idea, then this matter. Hee, it's fine if we don't do it for the time being. It was only a matter of time before he took action against Medical City. If he could ruin Medical City's reputation and get rid of head elder Ling in advance, Long Feiyi would be more than happy to oblige. However, he was purposely keeping Gu in suspense because he was well aware of Gu's impatience and had no choice but to agree. Gu was silent for a moment, but in the end, he nodded. All right. He turned to leave as soon as he finished speaking. 10 days was all it took to make a round trip to Pill Fiend Pharmacy. He wouldn't go see Mu Ling, but he couldn't avoid exchanging letters with her. Even if Mu Ling, couldn't come up with any good ideas for him, he still had to discuss the Mu clan's matters with her. After Gu left, Tang Li couldn't hold it in any longer. He anxiously asked, Duke of Qin, what should I do? Tang Zijin and Aunt Ru were about to find him. Once they caught him, he wouldn't be able to escape unless the Duke of Qin completely fell out with them. Based on his understanding of the Duke of Qin, he would at most bicker with his father, but wouldn't completely fall out with him. Long Feiyi glanced at him and said coldly, still not running? Tang Li almost knelt before Long Feiyi in front of Gu Beiyue and cried, Big brother. Run? He'd already been running for over a year. Was he going to continue running? Moreover, there was nowhere safer than staying by the Duke of Qin's side. He shot a pleading look at Han Yunqing. Han Yunqing said seriously, hide. Hurry and find a room to hide in. Come out when I tell you to. Don't move if I don't tell you to. As soon as he finished speaking, a servant came to report, Your Highness, there are 2 people outside requesting an audience. They claim to be from the Tang clan. Besides hiding, did Tang Li have any better ideas? Of course not. He cupped his fists at Han Yunqing, then hurriedly fled through the back door. Take them to the guest hall, Long Feiyi ordered. Your Highness Duke of Qin, esteemed Wang Fei, this one is tired. I'll be going back to rest. Gu Beiyue retreated. A complicated look flitted through Han Yunqing's eyes. She probed, should I go take a look at Tang Li? Long Feiyi didn't reply. He pulled her up by the hand and led her to the guest hall. Han Yunqing was instantly overjoyed. This guy was finally not avoiding her when it came to the Tang clan's matters. She turned her head to sneak a peek. Suddenly, she discovered that Long Feiyi's profile was especially handsome. When they arrived at the guest hall, Tang Zijin and Aunt Ru had just been brought in by servants. After not seeing Aunt Ru for a long time, Han Yunqing discovered that she was still as domineering as before. However, there was a hint of hardship on her face. She'd probably been busy searching for Tang Li for over a year. As for Tang Zijin, this was Han Yunqing's first time meeting him. Because of her previous bad impression of him, even though Tang Zijin was well-dressed and had a dignified appearance, Han Yunqing only thought of him as a sanctimonious person. Her heart was calm. She was here as a guest, not to meddle in the Tang clan's affairs. When Aunt Ru and Tang Zijin saw Han Yunqing, their hearts surged with tempestuous waves. When Aunt Ru had overheard that Han Yunqing was involved with the Shadow Clan, she still hadn't found out the truth. But just that fact alone was enough to make her and Tang Zijin want to kill Han Yunqing. But today, they were here for Tang Li. Han Yunqing's matters could only be discussed at length. 2 elders, did you find me for something? Long Fei Yi was neither cold nor warm. Tang Zijin sighed a few times and hesitated to speak. In the end, it was Aunt Ru who spoke up. Fei, is Li with you? She was just now, but she should have run far away by now. Long Fei Ye's words sounded like the truth. Aunt Ru and Tang Zijin grew nervous. Where did she run off to? Long Fei Yi turned to Han Yunqing. Does beloved consort know? Beloved consort. Han Yunqing was caught off guard. She stared blankly at Long Fei Yi, not knowing what to say. She had completely forgotten his question. Long Fei Yi allowed her to stare as his lips quirked up into a calm and collected smile. Your Highness Duke of Qin, is it really alright to show off your love in a place like this? Tang Zijin and Aunt Ru were about to die from anxiety. Fei, Tang Li's running away from the marriage has caused a huge ruckus. Old man. Old man can't even clean up the mess. You should hurry up and hand him over, Tang Zijin told the truth. The bride's side had already forced her way to the Tang clan. If they still couldn't find Tang Li, they would make the Tang clan pay the price. Could it be that the head of the Tang clan can't bear the consequences of ruining an engagement? Long Fei Yi smiled coldly. Tang Zijin was really getting worse and worse by the day, using such a lame excuse to fool him. Fei, do you know who Li's fiancé is? Aunt Ru asked urgently. Not interested. You won't get any results with your lordship here. Tang Li just left, so if we search the surrounding 100 li, we might be able to find him. Long Fei Ye's words implied that he was driving them away. But Aunt Ru suddenly revealed a shocking piece of news. Fei, Li's fiancé is from Celestial Mountain. Long Fei Yi grew angry at these words. He slammed the table and stood up. Han Yunqing was given a fright. It had been a long time since she'd seen Long Fei Yi so angry. She was stunned as well. She never expected Tang Zijin to hook up with someone from Celestial Mountain. Was there a hole in his head? Long Fei Yi was already a disciple of Tianshan Kenzo, so the Tang clan had no reason to form a marriage alliance with Celestial Mountain. Judging from his and Aunt Ru's panicked expressions, the bride's side couldn't be any ordinary girl from Celestial Mountain. Who is Celestial Mountain? Long Fei Yi asked coldly. You're tuning into the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.